Hello and welcome everyone back to Ani-mity. I'm Mustafa Niazi, your local anime enjoyer and aspiring screenwriter, and today I am once again joined by two lovely, amazing people. They decided they were willing to put up with my sass and my other comments, and decided they were willing to be in a video here with me. So I am going to open the floor for them to introduce themselves to my lovely audience here.
Yeah, hi everyone. This is Alia. I am back and so ready for part two. Thank you so much, Moose, for having me back. I am very passionate about our first video. It was so much fun, and I'm really happy with how that turned out. So I'm very excited for this one.
As am I. And
Hello, everybody. It's me. I am Chris. I was here on this channel before on the nice Vanguard video that you have all hopefully watched because it's a very informative video that was really fun to record. Uh, I'm not sure if people know, but I also really love Ruby, so I'm here to talk about Ruby again because I love talking about it, and I don't really have that much of an opportunity to actually talk about it with much people because Ruby's kind of not that big as most other media are. So and I get to talk about my interesting takes today. So I'm very fun to be here. Thank you for having me.
say it's my pleasure to have both of you on here with me. These are my absolute best friends in the entire world, and it makes me so happy to have them both
Eh,
together here for this
You're
video.
you're making me blush
Yeah,
again.
yeah. Say it's not my fault, I tell you. But anyway,
Good. Gonna
before this
pinch your
video
cheek.
I was saying that before this video balloons to like 2 hours of just me gushing about both of these people, I would like to give some disclaimers about about the stuff going to that we're going to be talking about today in the video. Starting with obviously spoiler alert because of the fact that we're going to be talking a lot about every single point of this franchise, every point of it from fan fictions to games to books to the actual TV show to movies. So if you haven't seen anything having to do with Ruby, please click off this video because we do not want to inform your opinions on it. We want everyone to be able to form their own and be able to think about their own kind of things when it comes to the show. Which brings me to my second point, which is everything we talk about in this video is exclusively speculative and of our own opinion. We do not aim to inform anyone of any particular opinion. We're just simply here to share our opinions with different people. If people don't agree with them, that is 100% fine. But we ask that if any discussions are to happen with any of the points that we make in the comments, that they are done in a manner that is respectful and that is cognizant of the fact that we are all unique individuals. We all have different views and mindsets on the world and different views on the shows that we consume and a whole bunch of other stuff, and that we're all trying to form one view for our own perspectives based off our own experiences.
Yeah, and I just want to add to that, like everyone obviously, I think this should go without saying, but I'm gonna say it, is that everyone's entitled to their own opinion, and we're not gonna, make fun of you or bully you if you have a different opinion than us, because I think all three of us have, although we kind of we bridge a lot of the same areas, we overlap a lot, we have different viewpoints and opinions. And like our first video, we can have that discussion, in a civil way.
Right.
So please don't leave any hateful comments, any like you're wrong and here's why. Like we welcome, different
Yeah.
views, but just don't be rude about it because that is not our intent.
I say
It's
absolutely.
always
We.
a good
Mhm.
idea to look at things from a different perspective. So if you don't understand why someone is saying something the way they are, please try to understand.
I was gonna say, like, we welcome all ways of thinking about the show and all ways of just thinking about life in general. But we always ask that it's done in a manner that is respectful and cognizant of the fact that there are no right or wrong ideas, just different ideas from all the different perspectives and all the different views we may have. And as long as you're respectful of that, we're happy to keep coming back to keep making videos like this. It just really bums me out to see when people are like knocking people down for a bunch of different stuff.
Yeah, I like friendly banter, but when the friendly part gets taken out of it, that's what I don't like. So we will not tolerate any of that.
Ah, ah, ah.
Just love everything. That's all that matters. All that matters is love.
Peace and love on the planet Earth, everyone.
So I think we also made this very clear, but we are all fans of Ruby. That's why we're sitting down and making this video. That's why we're taking the time out of our lives to like come together and talk about it. And I just want to reiterate that you can be a very big fan of something and still critique it. And I think that's what a lot of people don't seem to understand. So I just want people to keep that open mind that you don't have to love everything about a show or a franchise to still be considered a fan.
Absolutely. There's something I have a whole video on why like Ruby means the absolute world to me. And even I can admit like there are things about the show that I wish that they did better. There are things about the show that I wish that they did like improve on that I don't think are like the strongest points.
I have a lot of that.
Yep.
Check
The
out our
show
first
is
video.
definitely not perfect. I will definitely agree with
Yeah.
that, but it has something that we all really came to understand and love about it, which makes it one of our favorite. And I think that is very magical in its own way.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. And saying with all that being said, I now open the floor for our discussions and just get start things off. We were hoping, Chris, that you tell us a little bit about what was it about Ruby that got you into everything. What was it about this wonderful show
Okay,
that we love so much?
so
First video, link in description.
Yeah.
But hand it off to you, Chris.
Okay, so this is going to be a very epic tale, so I hope everyone is strapped in. Please grab some popcorn, grab a beverage.
Buckle
It's going to
up.
be a good time. Buckle up. Let's go, everybody. So, I think it was the year of 2020 when I first got into Ruby. Currently, Volume 7 was airing. Um, and I was very curious to get into it. I don't really remember what may have sparked my curiosity for it. Oh, you know what it was? I remember now. I was at Best Buy and I saw that they had the Ruby Volumes 1 through 6 collection for sale for like $10. So I'm like, you know what? This would be a really good thing to buy and watch because I have a friend who really loves Ruby, a few friends, and they told me how much they really loved it. I never really gave it any time or attention. So I'm like, maybe now is the perfect time to do so. So I did it. I bought the Blu-ray. I went home and watched it, and I honestly, I fell in love with the show. I fell in love with the characters. I fell in love with the world. I fell in love with the fight choreography, and everything about it was just really cool. The fact that there's like these semblances and like there's these evil creatures that terrorize humanity really shows how like dark and depressing the world is, but also how light and fun it can be for those living in it, while completely conveying lots of emotions and feelings towards the way the world is, and that's really awesome. So I really fell in love with it that way. So I watched volumes 1 through 6, loved it, and I'm like, I need more. So I instantly got Rooster Teeth first, and I watched Volume 7 while it was airing. I think I remember I got to watch the finale with a friend for Volume 7, and we all remember the finale of Volume 7, right? Right?
Yeah. Oh yeah, no, we absolutely do. Yep.
That was the one, and of course spoilers because as we mentioned, we're going to be talking about a lot of points up Ruby. But this was basically when Penny became like the Winter Maiden at the end instead of
Uh-huh.
Cinder, and it was very surprising and stuff. And
Yep.
like I was like, whoa! I can't wait for next season. It's gonna be great. Whoa! I can't wait for Volume 8. And that's when the wait really starts kicking in. So I think I watched it all again, and I really had the urge to like, I want more. I want more. So I got the game Grim Eclipse. I don't know if you guys know about that game, but it's basically like a fun little game where you go through a world and you have to defend. You have to go to like each location at the end. You have to defend an area without like losing it to the Grim, and you could play as like any character from Ruby or Juniper in it, and that's really cool. And they have like their own original character where the villain is Dr. Murlot, and it's actually really cool as well because it has its own song that actually got into the Volume 4 soundtrack, which is what was it called?
Let's say also Dr.
Uh,
Merlot is canon now, by the way.
Yeah, he's canon. I mean, I figured he was canon. Lucis Notori, that's the name of the song, which basically translates to
Yeah.
"freak of nature." Because I'm not sure if you who are not aware of the plot of Grim Eclipse, but basically this character named Doctor Merlot was experimenting on the Grim, like fusing it with like machine parts to see if they could control the Grim that way. Of course, it didn't end up working, and I think Doctor Merlot may have lost his life in the process. I actually never beat the game because the game is a little unfair, and it's a type of game you want to play with friends, and I never got the chance to play it with my friend, so that really was a bummer. But anyway, I got that. They had these little mangas as well. I don't know if
Yeah,
you
the
know about like
anthologies.
yeah, the anthologies. That's right. They had 1 through 4, each for like each character, and I bought those and I read those, and I'm like, oh, this is so great. This is so great. But the feeling of more kept just like gnawing at me. I wanted to experience Ruby more. I wanted more with the franchise. This franchise I really found out I loved and was growing attached to. And here I was at the age of like 24, and I'm like, at this point, you kind of like love your interests, and it kind of it's hard to like new things at that point. So the fact that there was this one series that could like really make me like love something all over again, like I was a little kid, made me feel like magical. I wanted more and more. So my thought process went to maybe we could start with reading some fan fiction. So at that point, as soon as I thought the alternative of fan fiction, my brain was in a constant battle where basically it's like, no, you don't want to read fanfic because fanfic is cringe. Who wants to do that? It's really horrible and stuff. But it's like, but I mean, you
Not
might
wrong.
find like a really good one, and you never know. Something might be really good. Who knows what's gonna happen? I'm like, no, you can't do that. It's gonna be really bad, and it's not even canon material. Like, who cares? It's just not even fun. And it's like, but it's a good distraction until Volume 8 comes out and stuff. So this was like a constant battle that was like going on in my mind. So I'm just like, you know what? I'm just gonna bite the bullet. So I did it. I read my first fan fiction, which was really great. And after that, I realized, you know what? I really like fan fiction, and you know what? I also really like reading because at this point, I didn't really read that much. Sure, I love manga, like I love anime and manga, so I would read manga, but manga doesn't have as many words as like a book does, and in a sense, fan fiction is kind of just like a book. So it's just like words, and you use your imagination to imagine the scenes and stuff. And I had the help of seeing the world that I was reading on like from the actual like volumes and stuff. So that got to help with my imagery and things, and it really helped along the process of really enjoying the fan fiction. So and it was really funny because my first fan fiction I read, it's called Letters to Winter, and it's basically a Weiss and John romance. And let me tell you guys, if you don't know, my favorite character is John Arc of in the RWBY series. He's my favorite one because
We will
I
be
do love
talking about that.
a good underdog character, and I really felt like he was like the character who he was kind of like the loser at the beginning, and like he slowly gets his way up and over to the point where, he finally gets to at least a good spot. But of course, stuff goes down, things are bad, and he's doing his best to cope through the situation. And I really think that that has like a lot of potential for that. So, and I really like Weiss as well. I really liked her like story arc of becoming free from her family, expressing herself in a way where she's not defined by her family, but she's defined by herself, and that's really cool. And I really like those two characters. I'm like, you know what? I kind of shipped them. So I read this fanfic called Letters to Winter. Basically, it's basically a beacon and stuff, but the only difference is that Weiss makes a bet with Cardin, and she's basically, and the bet is basically that she's gonna train up John to beat Cardin, and if she does, that proves. I actually forget what the winner gets from the bet, but that was basically the premise. So it basically starts with like Weiss training John, reluctantly and really, and like just like the way she does it, and in a way, it, it's just she trains her and stuff, and then as they train with each other, they start to get closer with each other. Like they start to learn about each other. Like maybe their families aren't, maybe their life's past isn't as like they're
It's not
more
one of those
similar
high
than they
school
thought.
romances, is it? You're kidding
What
me, man.
what's up? What's
It's
up?
not one of those high school romances where it's just like, oh, like you have the popular girl training the not so popular guy, and then the yeah.
I'm explaining it really badly. It's kind of like
I mean,
it's regular Beacon, but Weiss basically trains John, and they grow
So
to get
Weiss is
closer and
basically
stuff.
Pyrrha.
yeah.
I mean,
It's not
obviously, in every flick like that, there's going to be the Pyrrha interference because it's like Pyrrha really likes John,
right.
so and uh, sorry, I lost my train of thought.
Oh no, you're
They
fine.
go closer. There's like drama and stuff in there, and I really like the conclusion of it because it just felt like really natural. And after I read this first fanfic, I'm like, this is really nice. This is really cool. Maybe I could find other good fanfics like this. And that's when I found uh, my main author, who I really love. His name is Kor Al Aran. He makes some of the best fan fictions I probably will ever read in my entire life.
Not sponsored.
But before I go more into details about that, do you have any questions about anything I've said so far?
Um, no, I don't.
And
Okay.
I mean, I was gonna say just like, no way am I actually the one who started Ruby the earliest of the three of us, which I'm surprised by, but also
Well, I mean, I've heard of Ruby, but I never like watched it until like
I
2020.
I know, but it's just like I got into Ruby when I was like, well, when did Volume 4 come out? Was that like 2019, 2018 around there?
Yeah.
14.
Yeah, so I got into Ruby 2014 was when I started like my whole journey with it. I'm just shocked given like just how passionately both of you talk about
Well,
man.
that's
I'm yeah.
to Chris, because I oh, excuse me, I won't go too much into it because of the last video, but I
Right. Yeah.
actually started when Volume 7 was airing, so
Oh,
very
did
familiar.
you? Oh, yeah, I
Yeah,
forgot. Oh, that's awesome.
yeah, so
I'm just surprised by that mostly, and it's also just like
Well,
I.
it just goes to
Mhm.
show that no matter when you start, people can be like equally passionate about something or even more than maybe others at a point as well. And that just shows that time doesn't really mean anything. It's kind of just like
Oh no,
a stamp of like, oh, this is when I got into Ruby and stuff. But I don't really
yeah,
think time really has anything to do with like passion.
it doesn't at all. It's just mostly just I found it funny, just that I because I always like just again like I've never asked you I guess when you got into Ruby and just like all this time I thought that you were like someone who like got into the show like really early on, and it
No,
just
Volume 7.
surprises me now that like yeah you got into it like way later than because it's always like I don't know like, I remember Ruby when it was like really like brand new and there really weren't like a lot of people that talked to it and like to think that like man I could have gotten you into Ruby all that time ago if we met back then so dang. But I mean,
Probably.
I will also say, like, as someone who's read like so many of the different like fanfics, like this guy does a lot of stuff, and a lot of it is very like genre focused.
Because
I was gonna say,
John
like,
is the
yeah,
character that's the most easy to like write differently because it's like he's kind of like a neutral character, in a way like
yeah,
his
he's like the everyman.
I
yeah,
personally believe that the a way someone experiences their life, like the life they go through, shapes the person who they are in the future, like their experiences and stuff. And John is the perfect thing of that because he's kind of like a blank slate when he's at Beacon, and like a lot of things can happen that can lead him to be a different person than what he can be, and that's really potential. Of course, you could say the same about anybody, but in the context of Ruby, John's definitely the most open about that. With how he only wanted to be a huntsman a year before Beacon started. He had to fake his transcripts to get into Beacon, and how his family obviously didn't know or didn't approve of it and stuff. So it's just really awesome to see the way he could be written because you could also in like fanfic lore write something before he went to Beacon, like when he was a child, which has happened probably many times, and that's really
it has.
awesome. Which is also another reason why I like John as a character, and he's my favorite.
I was
Uh,
like,
but yes,
hot take. I think he's
I've read a
still.
lot of favorite ones. You want to know what my favorite one is? Here, I'll tell you what my favorite one is.
Sure, hit me.
So let me. Well, this is mostly for Alia. Alia, listen to
Okay,
this.
sure, I'm
So
listening.
this is volumes 1 through 3, right? But
Mm-hmm.
what if John's transcripts were so good, Ozpin hired him as a teacher instead?
Is that the one you were telling me about, Moose?
Yeah, this is. I told Ollie like a little bit about like Professor Arc. That's
Professor
the name of
Arc
it. Yeah.
is the
Yeah.
name of the fic, and basically, uh, and let me tell you this because this fic came out before I think like volumes like 4 or 5. Some facts are obviously going to be wrong compared to
Extremely.
canon, so that's perfectly fine in the context of that. But basically, John went to Roman to get his transcripts faked. Roman faked them so good that Ozpin hired him as a teacher, as like an
Wow.
assistant teacher, it's actually really good because it really goes to show some of the characters that we really didn't get a lot of time with. Like John gets to befriend like Port, and like they have this like one of the first parts is like John and Port are like watching the students as they sleep, so they have to do like the overnight shift, and they like get to talking and chatting and stuff, and it's really cool and really fun. And then you get to see Oobleck more, and basically get to understand like why he loves to be a teacher and also why he loves history a lot more, and you get to see a lot more of Glinda as well and see like what she has to deal with. And the story is also kind of written like a comedy, so they kind of write like Ozpin as kind of like a little bit of an idiot who loves like coffee way too much. It's really funny because he always has that coffee mug and he's always sipping from it. So they kind of write him as not like a total idiot, but he loves like coffee so much that he's like coffee obsessed, and it's really great. But you also get to see more of Ozpin as well and see like how he runs the school and stuff, and it just goes to show a perspective different from what you would see as a student, and you wouldn't think to see these characters written this way. And it's really awesome to see them written this way because it goes to show like, oh, these characters could definitely be like that, even though we've seen so little of them in the canon show, and it's just really an amazing feeling to see that. So later in the fic, John actually becomes a therapist there for like the students because he's similar to the age of the students. Technically, he is the age of the students, but he had to lie and say he was 20 when he's actually 17. So he's more closer to the age. So a lot of students come over. So there's just a lot of like problems and stuff, and it's really cool and fun to see like the different divergent pathways that it would take just because of the fact John became a teacher. Uh, it's really great. And one of my favorite parts of the fic is it actually shows a lot more of Roman and Neo in it as well. I think honestly, before I read this fic, I really did not care about Roman and Neo, but after reading this fic, they're
Yeah.
honestly probably my favorite villains of all time, just because of this fanfic. And that is
So do
saying a
you
lot that a fanfic can make me feel that way.
so Chris, do you like the fan fiction more than the canon?
Do I like the fanfiction more than the canon? That is a great question. I'm going to say I think it depends on how it's written and who writes it. Now, obviously, I still, after reading as much fanfiction as I do, there's definitely still a lot of really bad fan fictions out there that aren't written really right. And I'm not
It's
shaming
very
those
hit or
fanfic.
miss.
It's very hit or miss. I'm not shaming those fan fictions because I'm sure the person who writes them puts a lot of time in them to make them the way they are, and I'm not faulting them for that. But sometimes, even if you try to write a banger, it's not going to be really good. But then you'll have other times when the fanfic is so good that it can be better than canon, and I do agree with that. That sometimes somebody else can write your story better than you, and that's nothing to be ashamed of because maybe you could learn from them and try to get better with your
Hmm.
own writing, and that's nothing wrong with that. So to answer your
Definitely.
question, yes and no. Fan fiction is definitely better and also not better than canon material.
Hmm.
I mean, like, I'll say, like, again, from reading Professor Arc, from reading Not This Time Fate, a bunch of different titles by this author, like, there's some points where I felt like they did really better than what they did in the actual, like, canon. Like, they do Adam, like, significantly differently. Like, easy thing to, like, fix or what. Yeah, I mean, it's just because, like, the thing is, just, like, I think just they do Adam just so differently in it, and, like, I like what they do with him in the fanfic. Like, he has something, he's not, like, and to clarify again, I am not supporting that Adam did any of these horrible things, but just they gave a reason behind why he did a lot of the different things that he did, and they gave a lot more of like a, oh, he really did care about the faunus kind at one point, but then that kind of like devolved as he got more like war crazy.
So I guess I like it when people discredit fan fictions or make fun of people for reading them
Mhm.
because I think like with a show like Ruby especially like you can always just say like, oh, they didn't have the budget to do it, they didn't have the resources to expand more. Because I think one of the biggest I guess I wouldn't really call it a problem, but they didn't spend a lot of time in the Beacon era. And I think like since we're
No,
talking about Chris, there's so much opportunities there they could have explored. And I know they did it with like Ruby Chibi a little bit.
Yeah, a little.
I really like how
Ruby
like
Chibi is
all that.
so great.
It
Yeah,
is.
right. I like how the fanfic creators can just go wild and do whatever they want and help flesh out characters that the story didn't have time or like the resources to do. So I think it's just a really great medium for fans.
Definitely,
Absolutely.
definitely.
But and I have another fanfic here. This is actually one of my favorites. It's actually instead of John, the main character is Adam. This one's called the Beast of
Okay.
Beacon, and basically the premise of this is Adam actually follows Blake to Beacon and attends Beacon. Of course, Ozpin knows Adam more than they know Blake, so he's like under surveillance and stuff. And he's like, you have to make sure you're good. If not, you're gonna go to jail. We're giving you this opportunity to do good, Adam, because Ozpin's giving him a chance because he's obviously lived a very long time, so he believes in second chances a lot more often than someone who
Right.
hasn't lived as much as him. So he ends up being on a team with Ruby, Weiss, and Yang, while Blake ends up with John, Nora, and Ren. Pyrrha's just I guess on her own team and stuff, and it
Rest
just
in
really
peace.
goes to show at first Adam's perspective is he doesn't really care about he hates the humans, especially since he's on a team with Weiss. But it's like the slice of life effect that I like to call, where basically if you spend time with people a lot,
Yeah.
your feelings start to change and you start to get comfortable and stuff. And that like slowly happens with Adam. He gets like used to his team, he starts loving them and stuff. And he just kind of gets more humanized in a way that you wouldn't really expect Adam to be, considering how he's portrayed in the canon. I feel like Adam was really good up to volume 3, and then they completely destroyed his character volume 6. But I think that's a very popular opinion that many people share because he went completely crazy over Blake, and I feel like that's not really a good way to portray him when he was kind of like. Yeah, he was evil, but like you could like understand what he was doing and why he was doing it, because he was doing it for his species to make them more accepted and more just no one was so no one could be like racist to them or anything, because that was like
Yeah,
happening a lot in
thank
the
you.
world.
Because that's we didn't really talk about Adam a lot in our previous video. I really don't think we did. I don't remember. But in
Mhm.
a lot of the comments, we kind of fleshed out some of our viewpoints, and
Yeah.
my opinion was like exactly the same as yours, Chris. I just think there's a lot of like missed opportunity with a lot of characters, and I think they did a really good job laying the groundwork. But I think because we missed a lot of the slice of life stuff like early on in Beacon, it didn't really give them a lot of room to like actually flesh them out
Or
in the
like
best
B
way
I,
possible. And
characters.
yeah, actually
okay.
characters, because I think Adam, it's really unfortunate what they did do with him because it had such a great setup and then it just went off the rails.
It
Yeah, it
really
went off the rails
did. Yeah.
horribly. I think I
Yeah,
remember seeing in an article that was made by Rooster Teeth saying that they wish they didn't write the White Fang plot, and
yeah,
they're saying they're really really good at it.
they said they didn't think they could continue it because I don't I think this is what they said. They said we're white, we don't know how to write like a racism arc, and
Yeah,
so
I
they just
think I think you
they
might have
gave up.
mentioned that in the last video you guys did.
Yeah, I know we did in the comments, but I didn't really
Yeah.
successfully say
I
something.
mean, like, I
But
think
yeah,
like
I
we did
remember
like,
reading that. I'm like, what? That's
yeah,
crazy. Then why do it?
yeah, just because listen, like, because it really is just like if you don't know how to do something as writers, we learn. We go out and we get like research and do all this kind of stuff for it to learn how to do like a lot of different stuff. And it's like Adam, I felt like had so much potential. Like even if you wanted to pivot on the like, oh, obsessed with Blake thing, I think they do that very, very well. And like especially the fanfic you're having me read now, what was it called?
Relic
I'm
of the
reading. I
future.
That's what it is. Relic of the Future. Like, even in that, like they show at like the steps that brought Adam to that point of like, yeah, this is how he became like so like unhinged and that kind of thing.
And I know this is a fact because I watched a lot of the commentary and I like researched a lot of like the writers talking about what they wrote
Yeah.
because I hoped it would shine a bit more clarity on why they did certain things, but
It did
it
not.
just made me more confused. And for like show. And also, I just want to say quickly that we're not hating on the writers. It's just as writers ourselves and as fans, it's important to call out like
Right. It's like we also know like sometimes we'll have like these amazing ideas for scripts we've written before and we're like okay we want to do it this way but then we put it on the paper and either it doesn't come across the way we even wanted it to or it comes out exactly the way we wanted it to but like the viewers and the audience don't really like see it that way.
exactly. So that he had like the she name branded on his face and he was like blinded. They said like his backstory was that he was acting out in like the caves and then a worker just like let him have it and then they laughed about it and they're like, haha, Adam deserved it. And that's just like I don't know what to say about that.
I don't either.
It's
What?
so insensitive because you can't make this character who's suffered from like the fantasy equivalent of racism, like in my opinion, and have like one of the main characters' last names branded on his face and be like, he deserved it. That's just so tone deaf.
And then like never bringing it up again like with Weiss after the fact of he got killed.
It just forced to do anything malicious. I just think they like were in over their heads, and that's why they were like, oh, we should probably scrap this plot line, but it was kind of too little, too late.
Yeah, it's like it's either you decide to go into something and you follow through on it all the way through, or just don't do it in the first place.
I could definitely say during that Volume 6 fight when they were fighting against Adam and he revealed his face that showed the brand, it definitely
Mhm.
explained a lot of it that way his actions were. In the beginning, like why he joined the White Fang, why he was so passionate about everything he did. But they didn't really do much with that brand at the same time by not really having much. They could have showed like a little backstory or something, but they didn't really explain much of it, and that was kind of like really bad. I'm like, so you're just gonna reveal this major thing about this character and just not do anything with it? Oh, there
Exactly.
he's falling down the hole. All right, I guess he's gone. Bye.
Yeah, and
Exactly.
But I
and
could
like the
definitely say
reaction.
that
Yeah,
Adam is definitely handled really well in a lot of the fanfics I've read. So
absolutely.
another fanfic I read. All right, Alia, listen to this.
Okay.
So imagine this: that instead, when John submits his transcripts to Beacon, Ozpin denies him, saying he doesn't have enough talent to be there, and instead he opens up a coffee shop.
Okay, that's the one you were telling me about.
Yeah, that's good.
That
Okay.
is called Service with a Smile. And basically,
Yeah,
John fails to get into Beacon, and he instead opens up a coffee shop because his mom was very good at making those, like lots of different types of
That's
coffee
super
flavors.
cute.
It's
I
actually really good, and it humanizes so many characters you wouldn't expect, like Adam, Mercury, even Cinder, to like a point where it's like really great. And
yeah.
it also gives like a spotlight to other characters as well, like Velvet, who ends up working for John, and also Russell, the person who's on Cardin's team. I think he's the one with the mohawk. He's they give him a little backstory about like why he's like
An
friends with
asshole.
Cardin and stuff. Obviously, it's not canon because it's fan fiction, but it really makes
Still, but
sense in the way it's written, and it's just really good, and it's just like really goes to show that you can see these characters in a new light, comparatively different than normal, and it's really awesome. And that's why I really like all these fanfics. Like one of my favorite parts about the service with a smile is that Cinder adopts a dog.
yep,
Like
that's what I was gonna say as
she
well.
just adopts a puppy,
A
and
puppy
it's
named
just like
Snow.
it's kind of out of character, but with how they explain Cinder in the fic, it makes total sense. Because basically at this point, John knew that Cinder was going to do something like bad to like Vale and Beacon and stuff, so he was trying to give her like distractions or maybe a different goal to get her mind off of it. So they go to
Yeah,
a
he's
pet
just like,
shop
"Mm,
and
it's
she
not
sees the
moving."
dog, and it's like, and she's just like by the glass. She's going like bow wow wow, and the goes like, and the dog's like bow 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 bow. She's like bow wow wow softly back to it. And it was really like soft and adorable. And then John sees it, and Cinder's like, being all Cinderay and be like, no, I didn't do anything. Don't worry. And then Cinder later goes back and adopts the dog, like without John knowing. And yeah, she names it Snow because snowfall. It's really funny.
That's cute.
It's
It's
adorable.
real
Like,
that is
mhm.
definitely one of his best rated fics as well, because it just shows a different light to many characters, as I said, while also writing John in a different way. It also shows Junior and the Malashites a lot more too, because uh he's in the city, so, and Junior Malashites, they're in like a criminal gang, like I guess the mafia equivalent or something. Uh
Right.
and usually you have to pay protection money to the mafia, but I guess they really loved like John's coffee and stuff, that they just like buy coffee like normal people and stuff.
You just
And
kept the morale.
John actually ends up dating one of the Malashites too in the fic. Like that's the love interest for the fic, which is definitely a interesting choice. That I don't personally agree with, but I can see why it was the way it was by that, and it's just
See,
really interesting and fun.
I mean, I would really say there was a dating interest in that one, more so just like he definitely there was something that happened with like was it Melanie that he was with in that one?
It was Milsha.
Malachite?
It was Milsha.
Oh, it was Milch. Okay, sorry. I'm sorry. The two of them like never
That's
get shown in
fine.
the
It's
show. All
either the
right.
red one or the white one. I know.
Okay, it's just the thing. That's the only way I remember them. And like I don't,
They're
they don't
only
say the
shown in the
colors. And
yellow trailer and in like that one scene in volume 2, of course. And yet here they are in this fanfic being written like just from those two scenes, and it's like they're written so well it makes sense. This is how they would act if they were in the show.
I think they're in the opening of volume 2.
They are in the opening of volume 2.
yeah, like something like that. Like I remember, like during the opening of Volume 2, they're in the yellow trailer. They were at that one episode where Yang and Neptune went to the bar, and
And
then they
they're
show
in
up
the
again
Roman
in the.
book.
Yeah, I was gonna say in the Roman book as well when
Roman
Roman is
holiday.
protecting. Yeah. I was gonna say, like, there are a bunch of appearances where they do like show up, and like it kind of makes sense now. Like, oh, now we know the whole like Malachite connection to like the spiders and all that kind of stuff with Roman. But excuse me, but I never really felt like she was like the love interest per se from that one. Definitely just that was on like the more like just wholesome vibes. Just like there's no like we're not really pushing toward like any kind of like big war story. Then again, though, I do kind of like what they did with Oz because Oz actually ends up surviving by the end of that fit because it goes into like when Salem is supposed to get introduced. So Ozpin runs away. Cinder makes like a truce with Oz in exchange for that or something like that. Something that like Salem gets what she wants without killing Oz, and then like the fic ends with Salem showing up asking for a thing of coffee, which I thought was funny.
All right, so let me explain. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but let me explain. So
Oh no,
basically,
it's fine.
John like knows like all this is about to happen. So he's like, "Wait a minute. What if instead of all this fighting, I sit them all down in my little coffee shop and they all talk it over to see if they can come to an understanding?" So John literally has Roman, Adam, Cinder, Ironwood, and Ozpin all sitting down at a table trying to discuss if they can come to like a term. And of course they can't because it's like the maidens and the relic, and at this point Pyrrha's already the maiden because John gave her like good advice to follow, and she's actually teammates with Russell in this fic as well, because obviously John's not there, so teams get a little different.
Okay.
And she becomes the main at this point, and she's also there at the meeting. So while they're like all bickering and arguing, John's just kind of like, you know what? You're all a bunch of babies. You need to like think about the people, because like you're all fighting and you don't even care about our lives. We're just trying to live our lives here. You're just all you care about is your stupid war. And then they're like, you know what? You right. So then they talk it out and they come to the
You know
conclusion that
what? You
Moose
know
was
what?
saying.
That is what Volume 8 should have had, is because I feel like one of my biggest issues with the show is they focus on the plot over the characters. And like you were talking about with this fan fiction, it just seems like they really took the time to like, there needs to be a good balance between plot and characters. But if you don't have like well-written characters or well-grounded characters, but you have a really good plot, it's not going to be good because like why should you care, you know?
Right.
And I think that's
Exactly.
what the main canon kind of they do a good job with it at some points, but lately they've just like forsaken the characters just to like get their big like spectacle plot twists like stuff like that out. So I really wished in the canon, like in Volume 8, they had a moment like that where they just sat down and like talk things out. I think that's what it's really missing.
I
Absolutely, yeah.
personally believe that Ruby should have never left Beacon, and I think it all went downhill after there. But that's just my opinion.
I think that's a very valid opinion. It got quite very large scale.
Yeah, which listen, not that that's a bad thing for like I do think like they could have done so much more with it. Like it not so much like I think like oh yeah, they should have stayed there or they shouldn't have gone. It's like they could have done both. They could have like transitioned into that a little bit more smoothly. And I think we could have done a lot more because like I like the idea of the gods and I like the idea of like the Salem hierarchy and that kind of thing.
I do too. I
Yeah,
do as
but
well,
like
actually.
mhm. Yeah, I like the idea of it. It's just like the execution of it so far, like, could have had a lot more to it. Like Hazel before, like his whole vendetta against Oz, I thought was so interesting because it's just like it shows that like as much as like I loved Oz as a character from the beginning, like I just loved so much of his presence and his like, everyone makes mistakes, no one's perfect. I loved that idea of Oz with him, and I loved him so much as a character. Seeing that there is this like darker history to him, that he's gotten people killed and for a while, that was like, oh wow, did he get Summer killed and that kind of thing from that? And it was just like they could have explored so much more with Hazel on that, but then just like dead.
Are dropped, and they get credit for actually coming up with these really creative ideas. They just a lot of them they don't run with and follow through.
Right.
That's true. That's very true. Like that's one thing I definitely love about Ruby is they have so many good like ideas, as you guys were saying. Like the lore is really great, the world building is really amazing, but the execution on a lot of those things is just not really that great. And that's what I feel like some of the fan fiction from this author specifically is just really great. And that's why I'm technically always just reading his fanfics these days. Like I'm just like even reading like some of the ones I've read on just like many times. Like I think I read Professor Arc like 3-4 times. And it's because that's my favorite one. And I actually did Service with a Smile recently as well. So I just find myself more drawn to these fan fictions than the canon because it's just I feel like the way they're written is just a lot better than the canon.
And I think it's kind of going off of what I was saying about the characters. It's because the show, like from what I like hearing your story, it seems like you just got attached to the characters, so you want to see them,
I love the characters a lot,
right.
100%. I love
Yeah.
them all. John, Yang, Ruby, Weiss, Blake, Pyrrha, Red, Nora, Roman, Neo. I never thought. Listen, so there was this one fic I read. It's called Stress Relief. I actually had Moose read a little bit of it before. You probably remember Stress Relief, right?
Yeah, no, I started reading it last year, and then I made some other kind of trade with you. Life got a little busy, and then I just never went back to doing it. I do want to read it
Yes.
eventually, but
So let me explain the plot of this one. It's real quick. So basically, it's about Cinder, and basically she needs some like stress because she's trying to take over Beacon, and it's really stressful. So
aka Cinder being a mood.
she sees John, and she does very suggestible things to John that is not mentioned in the rang. It's just like it happens and it skips over to the next part. Like very suggestible sexual things that happen.
With
Uh,
young characters that
well, they're like the same age, so it's perfectly fine. I guess maybe I don't know,
yep,
but
they're the same
anyway,
age. That just yep, mm-hmm.
as long as they both consent to it, it's fine. Blah,
Yeah,
whatever.
okay, yeah,
Anyway,
okay.
so before going into this fan fiction, I thought there's no way that this story will make me feel for Cinder. There's absolutely no way. And this was one of the first few fics I read like when I started reading fan fiction, it's like one of the first ones. At the end of this story, I was literally crying my entire eyes out. And I honestly, I'm like, I can't believe it, but you actually made me cry for Cinder, the person who literally killed Pyrrha, killed Ozpin, and brought down Beacon. This story, this 19 chapter short story, made me cry for Cinder, and I could not believe it. That
Yeah,
that is that is when I realized I really really love these fanfics a lot.
yeah, that's really great because I feel like the writers of the actual show are just trying so hard to be like feel bad for Cinder, and it's not working.
Yeah, exactly. It's just
It's
not working. Like her canon backstory is kind of like meh. I mean, I can
it,
understand her actions, but like
it's putting it
she,
lightly, I would say.
she like freed herself from her shackles by like killing those like her like keeper and like her actual like legitimate daughters, and then she killed Rhodes the huntsman. So it's like, all right,
Well,
now you're
that's
free.
neat.
You can do what you want. And then she just goes to work for Salem, and I'm like, so you traded
And
in one leech for another.
we never learned how she met
That is
Salem
actually
either,
true. You're right. We never learned that.
that's a very
That's
good.
actually that's hilarious. I wonder if we'll
I
get that in the
know.
future.
Oh no, we absolutely are, but they're going to drive that into the absolute ground when they do. I'm
That
calling it
probably
now.
it would have been perfect to show it in Volume 8 when they did though. That would have been like the perfect time to do it. I wonder why they didn't.
Yeah, there's a number of things that Volume 8 they should have done that they didn't, and I said that we went into like a lot of them with the last video. Is there anything you wanted to add to any of that stuff, by the way, Chris? Just because.
Wait,
Because
list volume 8. Okay, let's talk about volume 8 for a little bit.
okay,
Volume 8 is, at the time, I thought it was really great watching it because I got to watch it weekly. It was the first volume I got to watch from like every week, because
yeah,
I'm like, oh my god, I can finally watch a new Ruby volume, new with all the other people, see what the discussions are. It's gonna be great. So I had like that, that tinted
yeah.
vision of
It's like
like, oh, it's
Yeah.
amazing. I love it, and I love it so much. It's
it
great.
was
Oh
it
my
was the
god,
second volume I got to watch,
Yeah.
like as it was airing, because volume seven was
I got to
released
the
in.
end of it like everybody else did, and I'm like, oh my god, Petty's free. She's a human now. And then the final episode comes out. I'm like, oh, she's dead again.
Yeah.
That's so tragic. And then I like cried whenever they played her song because I'm like, oh, this is so sad. I can't believe it. Oh. But I still think that. But
Yeah, yeah.
thinking back on it and a lot of other choices and things, there was a lot of unnecessary things that could have been avoided. Like, I don't know, maybe talking to Ironwood about the thing and maybe
Yes,
seeing what
Definitely.
can be done instead of going right to violence. They're basically, what was it?
maybe
They're doing
trying
the
to
same
work
thing
together.
Ozpin did.
What?
Yeah, work together to find a solution. This is a topic I've talked with Moose a lot about, but I think
Yeah.
Oh
Ironwood
yes,
he definitely gave into fear, but that at the
I
same
agree.
time, it's like a bad choice to write that way because he's like a general. He has to make those decisions. So you think he'd be above it. But then you can blame his semblance, which they revealed at the end of Volume 8, which is metal, which
No, they
basically
don't.
makes him hyper focused. Yes?
They don't reveal
Oh,
it.
I'm
Yeah.
sorry. I apologize.
Yeah. I
Uh,
was saying no, they don't.
Miles Luna
Yeah.
revealed it in a video that somebody said asked him a question about, which is
In a
at
Zoom
after
panel.
Volume
Yeah.
8. Yes, in a Zoom panel,
Yep.
So they didn't even tell
and
us
they
in the
also
show.
confirmed Ironwood was dead in that same thing, which is very funny.
Yeah,
But
I don't want to spend too much time talking about Ironwood because
so
I
it's
spent
like
45 minutes on the last video.
so
I mean,
but so
listen, just
so it's like if you're gonna reveal his semblance, maybe you should do that in the show. So I
yeah,
understand there's like budget cuts and stuff,
Right.
and like you can't include everything because that was something that Volume 9 also suffered from.
right.
The ending was really like kind of rushed in that regard, and I guess Volume 8 might have been the same way. But you could have at least like explained why Ironwood was acting the way he was, because in the way he was
Yeah.
portrayed in Volume 8 was definitely not the way he was in Volume 7.
I
Volume 7,
agree.
he was amazing. Everyone
Thank
was
you.
loving him. He was literally the goat of Volume 7. The
He
way he
literally
took down
stole the
Watts,
show.
amazing. His
So
song,
good.
a banger.
Gravity,
His
best
beard,
episode.
his beard on point. I loved
Yeah.
him
Yes.
so much. And
Thank
then
you.
it's like, what's this? A chess piece on my desk? Great, I'm afraid now.
Yeah.
See, what was I going to say? With like the whole budget cuts thing, it's like, yeah, you can use that as an excuse, but you can't use budget cuts as an excuse for bad writing. Like, they can't blame their, like, animation team or their time limit for bad writing because they could have found a way if the semblance was that important to put it in the show. And if it's not important, if it like then why even bring it up on a Zoom panel?
You
It's
Like
important to have it in the show because it defines a character, especially if it makes the character act a certain way. Now that you know
exactly,
this information and you look back, you could be like, oh, I understand. That's why he acted that way in
exactly,
that one scene. But you wouldn't understand that watching it the first time or without that context, which is not really good writing. If you need to
exactly.
get the context from it's like, oh hey, to watch this one movie, you have to watch these 3 series, read these 4 books, and also make sure to read this one paragraph that they released in an official report about this series. You don't do
You
that
can't.
for
Yeah,
writing. You
Marvel
have to
anyone?
make it consistent or in the actual show that it's in. You can't
you
say,
can't
oh,
make your
here it is in
yeah.
the aforementioned part. It's bad writing, and that I do not like. But
I
I
know
still
Moose
think
wants to
Ironwood's
say.
a good character at the end of the
I
day.
know Moose wants to say something, but you can't make your audiences do homework.
Yeah. I was saying Marvel anyone? I was gonna say because they do that so often. I was gonna say you want to know who can actually write that really because it's also like I feel like I knowing that metal was a thing in the show kind of made that scene worse for me because it's like I understand like fear is corrosive. It makes you like do things you wouldn't normally do. And I understood that whole like it that doubling down. Like that was the whole thing I didn't like about Ironwood originally was just the way that he just let fear absolutely destroy him and just made things progressively worse. It's a human thing, I get that, but it made me not like him that much as a character. Knowing that he didn't have a choice in that made that even worse. But I
He
was
just
gonna
made
say,
the
do you
wrong
want
choice.
I was saying though, but do you want to know who actually makes the use of metal really, really well written and really good for what the story is trying to tell?
Who?
It's my friend who's sitting right here next to me who gave me their fanfic that I read. I started reading it. I
Hello.
did start reading it, and it's just like I was reading through that, and I was like, Ironwood. Like I actually understand that now because he acknowledges, like, you're right. I don't have control over this, and I'm trying to. Like he admits to like I have this
I think he
legitimate
admits to everything.
problem. Yep. I started
Wow.
reading it, and I'm like, genuinely, like that was so much better with metal, and it's just like because just like
Is that a
reading metal.
fanfic I hear I need to read?
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's really just like the introduction of metal, the way that they did it, like regardless of the fact like they didn't introduce it into the show and that kind of thing, just the way that it is explained by them and the way it functions from what we see in the actual show I don't like it. I don't think it's very like satisfying to like the character that is Ironwood or anything like that. And it's like I mentioned this before. It's like I didn't like Ironwood at first, and then we got to Gravity, and I like loved him as a character. I was like, yeah, I was just like never doubted you for a second, Ironwood. And then 5 seconds later, it was like you motherfucker! I knew you were gonna stab us in the back again. I knew it.
Speak really quick because I don't want to talk about this
Right,
for
right,
too long.
fine.
So, like, I didn't have a lot of problems with it. At first, I watched Volume 7 as it was airing. Volume 7 is my favorite volume. Ironwood's my favorite character, so I loved Volume 7 so much. And then Volume 8 just ruined it all for me because it just wasn't well written. I'm sorry. There was just too much that could have been that wasn't. So, yeah, I rewrote it, I fanfic. Yeah,
Isn't it
I'm so
crazy how you think about Volume 8 could just be a fanfic on its own?
It really could be.
because like we were talking about, he just did a full 180. It just didn't make any sense to me. It just felt like they were trying to speed run this like negative character arc, and it just didn't work. The main character just I, you know what? Just go watch the other video. I'm
why
not gonna
why
rant
did
on it.
why did they kill Penny? No.
They tried
I
speedrunning
actually
it.
have a signed picture of Penny signed by Taylor herself.
Oh, it's so sweet. Penny's such a good character, and I love when she became the maiden. Like you said, it was such a plot twist, and then they just like threw that
Exactly.
all out the window.
Yeah.
Oh wait,
Yep.
actually give it back to Winter.
It
Like
makes
you won't do that.
it
Yeah.
makes her a very cruel character. I actually kind of liked that Penny gave it to Winter. I kind of liked that because they were kind of like friends when they were like at Atlas together, and I did like that. But yeah, I can kind of agree. It's like, oh boy, it's Winter. Winter gets the Winter Maiden. Who saw that coming?
Right?
Hmm.
Kind of understand how they like didn't think the audience would think they'd kill Penny again because they brought her back to life. How could she possibly die? It was just done in such a like distasteful way for me. It was just it like I we talked about this in our last video, but they only made her a human so she could die permanently, and that's just it just really doesn't sit right with me.
I mean, don't say permanently yet. They could still very much like they could eventually. I mean, I wouldn't
Hey,
say that. 'Cause I
it's
mean, I said that
possible.
before, but yeah, no, just like anything is possible in this show at this point because of the fact that they don't have a consistent way of being like these are the rules that we actually follow, and they just kind of throw them out at their convenience.
They volume 10, they see Pietro again, and it's just like, oh hey, Team Ruby, I'm making another penny.
Yeah,
And it's like, you writers, you, how dare you make me feel things.
You know what? They honestly, I don't even know if I want that at this point.
I don't either, but like what I can see happening is like, okay, we're gearing up for like the final war against Salem, and Pietro gives the last of his aura, dies. Penny comes back. Penny's like a beast on the battlefield. She's like ripping everything up, and then she dies again.
Did that because it was such a good arc for her because I
It
know we
was
talked
a
about
good
this
arc.
before also in the
Hmm.
last video how with the whole Pinocchio story in my
Right.
opinion they didn't have to make her a real girl like make her human because she became a real girl when the Winter Maiden powers recognized her as a real girl and like she was still a robot that was part of her but it didn't have to be like she didn't physically have to become a human it was more of like a metaphor thing. And so I
Right.
really like that at the end of volume 7 how that happened to Penny and I just wish they could have explored that more. And I just like volume 8, she just spent the whole time like hacked and then she died. Just
Pretty much. Yep. That is
Yeah,
accurate.
it
That
was
is
kind of horrible.
deserve better.
absolutely.
Well, it's a good thing there's an awesome fanfic out there that you can read that writes Volume 8 better, right?
Oh my god, I know. Like, why who found
Oh my goodness.
who wrote
But
that?
speaking of awesome fanfics, would you like to hear another really good fanfic that I've read?
Sure.
Yes.
All right. Moose has read this one. He's actually mentioned it earlier. So
I did.
imagine this:
I
we are
did.
in this. So basically the main character is John, of course, because he's the
Okay.
Yeah.
best character in the show.
We need to talk
Anyway,
about John after this.
Yeah. Absolutely.
yeah, we're gonna talk about John. Okay, we're gonna talk about John after this. So basically, um, think of it like this: every time John dies, he goes back in time. Okay.
Oh yeah. Okay, yes, you did.
Yeah. This is not this
Yes,
time
but
fate. Yep.
it's parallel to when Beacon initiation is. So let's say for example, John dies 2 hours into after Beacon's initiation. That means he will come back to life 2 hours before Beacon's initiation. So for example, if
Assuming
it's like a
base.
week,
Yep.
he'll come back. He'll come back a week before. If it's a month,
Oh,
like a month
that's interesting.
before. So it's like he knows that like Beacon's gonna be taken over with like Cinder and everything, but he's not strong enough to stop her. No matter how much time he goes back, he goes back. He's died many times. He's seen all of his loved ones die many times in front of him, and he's kind of like different than the John we know. He's more like darker and more like conceited and stuff like that. So
Okay. Volume nine,
he
John.
no, it's a little bit more darker than that, I would say, not like volume 9, but
Eh.
I would say that maybe a little similar. But anyway, so the story starts with John waking up. He just mentions he died again. So he decides that, you know what? Screw you, fate. I ain't going to Beacon. I'm actually going to stay with my family. And because I have a family who loves me. And I want to be with them because I've always neglected them to go run off to try to play hero. So this life is for my family. So he decides to stay on with his family. Of course, fate decides to work differently, where basically there's a random Beowulf attack, and John kills it with no aura because he still has, even though he goes back in time and his body is weak, he still has the knowledge that he's learned from like the past, so he can like fight and everything.
He was a
And
fucking
that ends up
beast.
that ends with him like getting into Beacon again. So it's like this really dark, depressed John who doesn't want to like do anything, because he wants to try to get kicked out of Beacon so he can go back with his family. Uh, and he's like he's on a team with Weiss, Blake, and Yang, while Ruby's with Pyrrha, Ren, and Nora. And it's really nice because John's just all really evil and mean and well, not evil, he's just like mean
Depressed.
and neglectful, while everyone's like, you gotta be more nicer, you gotta take this seriously, blah 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 blah.
And he's just like,
It
nah, fam.
I don't want to get too much into it, but it's probably one of the best fanfics I've read as well. I know I probably said that for a lot of these, but this one actually really good. I think I'm just a little biased towards it because I love time travel. One of my favorite anime series is ReZero. I don't know if you know the plot of ReZero, but basically every time the main character dies, he goes back in time to a point to try to prevent it. So this story really like came up to me, and I'm like, I love it. This is such a good one, and I really love the conclusion of it, and like all the things that John like really learned. All the other characters, like Weiss in this fic. Whoo! Weiss is such a star in this fic. It
Oh
made
no,
me
she
actually love
absolutely
Weiss
is. Yeah.
even more. That she's the reason why I have this fic is the reason why I have a Weiss Schnee wallet. For as my like main wallet when I go out. I actually need to get a new one. I've had this for years, but
Same with
it's
me,
a
my
really
Ruby
good
one.
fic. It's a really good fic. I definitely recommend that one. I have lots of recommendations, but I was
Yeah.
you wanted to talk about Mr. John Arc, huh? You want to talk about why he's the best character ever?
Absolutely. Moose,
Absolutely.
do you want to, do you want to, okay, how about, well, okay, Moose, you tell us what you think about John, and
Yes,
then
Moose. Tell
I'll
us
tell
what you
you
think
what I,
about John.
and then I'll
Yeah.
tell you what I think about John, and then Chris can wrap it off on why John, in his opinion, is the best character.
Okay.
Oh, you say, oh boy, I'm the one starting this one off. Okay. No, I mean, I'm happy to start. It's just like, oh boy. So, because the thing is, like we were saying before, like how like Jean's one of the easier characters to write because of that. Like, especially in the beginning, he's like kind of a blank-ish character where they kind of like do anything with him, and it kind of like he has a lot of potential to be a bunch of different things because he didn't really have like much of a standing in it. I still feel that's the way Jean is like now. It's like you can give him the whole like the whole like oh he was stuck on in the ever after for all that time in volume 9 and that kind of thing. He has a whole backstory with him. He has like, a bunch of stuff which I feel like the writers could have done so much more with, and like I've grown to appreciate that a lot more from reading all the different fics I have. But they just never do anything with it. It's like I like the idea that like, oh, Jean is like he has no reason to be there. He has no experience. He has no reason to be like among the huntsmen and that kind of thing. But he's trying, and he's got that underdog story to him. And I think people love the underdog story. I respect that. I get that. But I feel like they don't do enough of like looking into like, oh, well, he's lost like the one person who believed in him in Pyrrha, and then later on had to be the person who killed Penny, who had to like because they make killing people seem like such an easy thing. That feels like such a horrible thing to say out of context, also.
Yeah.
But like,
Yeah,
they
everything's
make it.
really like fleshy in Ruby. You know, it's like after you lose your aura, it's like oh one more stab and you're dead.
Yeah, it just the thing is that they don't like they make that seem like such a like oh it's an NBD like I just kill all these people it's all fine but just like exactly. But it's just like like
Okay.
I loved when in Ruby when they stabbed Adam. Like there was that moment where Blake and Yang were like visibly shaken up, but then 5 seconds later they show up, they just pull up like, "Hey, what's going on, guys?" So just like they're dealing with
What's
the
up?
robot, and it's just like I feel like they don't give like enough grip to death to make it feel like an actual impact. They started doing really well with that in Volume 4 when we see the scene with Jean training with the Pyrrha video like that made me really like feel like oh like that like she's gone like you come to that like kind of grip of like he's dealing with grief and that kind of thing and it's like some of these characters should like not so much they should be constantly dealing with grief and that kind of thing but it's like they could do so much more to explore grief and explore that like loss and I feel like for Jean especially that's really the only arc for him, no pun intended, but the only arc to him that I really think is like grounding enough to make me like care about him if I was gonna, if anything.
I think that's interesting. So you like him? It's just you like you wish they could do more. They wish they did more with him. Kind of.
I'd say like I don't hate him is what I will say. It's like he has a lot of potential to be a very interesting character. He has all the beats that I think could make him a very interesting character. It's just like with a lot of things in Ruby, they just don't follow through with.
He is a good boy.
He's a good boy.
My opinion on John.
He
So
does.
I do not hate. I think he's a cool character. I really like his like storyline in the first few volumes of like him and Pyrrha and him like learning how to fight and all that fun stuff. I just for me he took over the show too much, which I think is interesting because you wish they would do more with him, and I think they do too much with him because I think he overshadows Ruby like her character way too much, and a lot of her moments should have been Ruby's moments. Like I think Ruby should have been the one to kill Penny. I think in volume 1, even though I like his arc, he got like half of volume 1 was like focused on him. And like at some points you can even say like Jean is the main character at some points, even though Ruby is like, is
Supposed
supposed
to
to be
be
the
there. Yeah.
friend. She never gets anything, which is with Jean, and I don't hate him. I really liked his arc. I liked in Volume 4 when he was like, they could have done more with it when he was like grappling with the death of Pyrrha. But
Hmm.
then, Ruby didn't get to grapple with the death of Pyrrha that much, even though she's the one who saw her die. It was more focused on Jean.
Right.
And he just, because he feels like such an everyman character, which isn't a bad thing. He just feels so generic, and that's why, I feel like they focus on him. They give him those stuff because he's like a character people, I guess, can kind of latch onto, which like I don't mind it. I just wish Ruby herself would get some of her moments. I think he takes them over too much for me, and so that makes me not like him not
Yeah,
much.
which is totally understandable. I would say is like cause my thing with that is like I feel like Ruby was just built up so strong in the beginning, and then like it made the cracking that started later
Yeah.
on feel that much stronger. That's why I thought like Ruby didn't really need the attention early on because she kind of like had that like she was the glimmering light at the end of the tunnel is the way I saw it. Exactly. And it's like I felt like that was just so strong on its own. And she just had these like little quirky kind of things that like made her work to that. That's part of why like I wished earlier on we got more of Jean, but it's just like definitely like I do feel like Ruby could have definitely gotten a lot more like love and attention of like development as a character. Cause definitely like I didn't feel much for her by the time we got to the end. I think we discussed that a lot in the last one.
Absolutely, and also with Volume 9, I didn't really watch the second half of it. I did not watch the first half. I know what happens in it. I just didn't actually talk
Because of
about
me.
it.
I mean, you saw the cat go into Neil's mouth. That's all you needed to see.
Yeah.
So
Penny's death, and I did a moment between Jean and Ruby where they talked about it, but Ruby just like she just passed out, and then she like never brought it up again, except like little moments from what I saw. But then like when Ruby like had her big thing where she's like exploded on everyone, it turned into like it was Jean's problem, and then Jean started lashing out. Then Ruby ran away, and then there was the whole tea party scene, and then Ruby killed herself, and then the episode after that it opened up where Team Ruby was comforting Jean about like his little paper people thing. It
hmm
just they focus on Jean's like problems, which I think they need to do, but they like at the expense of Ruby's character
and Yang.
and Yang,
That
which
that I think was just because of the poor budgeting. I think they intended to put more into those episodes, but because of budgeting, they had to take some scenes out.
I
Now
get
I'm gonna
that, but
say
then
something crazy. I'm gonna say something crazy.
okay,
It is too
Alia,
crazy.
I agree with your point that they maybe showed too much John in the show.
okay, thank you.
And now the reason now I can some of the things like the points you said like I disagree with like I think John being the one to kill Penny was probably something that might show something later on in the series. I'm not sure what exactly, but I'm gonna let it cook. But like in the
Okay,
beginning, like John dies with all that card and stuff. I think that was really unnecessary and not really like there was no point in having that like card and John like drama and stuff. And I think that could have definitely been taken out to show more of Ruby herself in like expand her character enough. But when you said that, it got me thinking about like all the John scenes, and I'm like, you know what? I think that maybe there is probably a little too much John in the show, and maybe
yeah,
he
and
does like overshadow a lot more things.
and
Uh,
I don't dislike him because I think he's well written. I just I think a small part of it is that he's voiced by Miles Luna, so I'm like, oh, like, and I
yeah, the
also know.
bias is there,
Right, but I know
100%.
that Miles said he doesn't like writing John-centric episodes, like he makes other people do it because he doesn't want to show that bias, which I do respect that. But there's just a tiny part of me that I'm like, he's a self-insert, you know? So
Yeah.
That
I just I
he
just
just like me for real.
I I just wish that got more, and so it makes me not like him as much because he overshadows her, which I just think that's unfortunate.
Which is
I
again
could
valid, I would
definitely
say.
see that John like early volumes is definitely like a self insert, 100%.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Because like that thing about like John being able to go to like different paths, be different, like all the fanfics I've read are kind of like self-insert in a way. Because it's
Yeah,
kind of like if you
because
were
he's
like
like
an actual
Batman.
character, you would
Hmm.
have like a goal and determination and like a motive and stuff. And John's just kind of there. He just wants to get better as a huntsman, and that's kind of it. That was
Yeah,
He's like,
it.
"Hi, I'm Sean."
It's like basically for Yang, they're like, oh, she wants to try to find her actual mother while, uh, taking care of Ruby. Weiss wants to just be different from her family, get away from them, and be herself. And then Blake's just like, White Fang, White Fang, White Fang, drama, 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 stuff like that. But that's still more interesting than John is. So I
And
can
then
kind of
also
understand that
Ruby herself
Ruby.
doesn't have a lot, you know?
That is why
Like
I
we
said
know,
before Volume 9, I think Ruby was probably the most boring character out of the four main characters because they didn't really give her much of anything compared to the other
I
three.
think so
But I think
too.
because of Volume 9, they really changed that and made her a lot more interesting. I mean, of course, I still love Ruby, don't get me wrong about that, but she was definitely the most boring out of the four main characters, even though she's technically the main character.
I'll say I have some takes on that. I was gonna say because just like I do like a lot of what they did with her in Volume 9. I do think that they do make her a much stronger character by Volume 9. I don't think that they necessarily like really like improved her by like that much of a margin, you know?
It was enough to make a difference, I think.
Shin likes the whole tea party scene. I think that was a great moment for her character when
Ah,
everyone's
that
like,
was such a
yeah,
dark episode. Oof,
right?
What?
God.
I loved it for that.
Actually then I don't love how she actually drank the tea. That's a whole other story. But I like how she was confronted with like, whether it was like just Roman messing with Neo messing with her
I
and
mean,
like some said were actually like true, like a lot of the stuff is her fault. She messed up, she made a lot of mistakes, especially in volume 8, and by like lying to Ironwood and that whole plot line, I just don't think she grew and learned from it. And at the end of volume 9, they're like, "Oh, you're perfect, just be yourself." But like she's not perfect, and I don't think the solution is to, kill yourself and get reincarnated. I just wish they had a moment where she talked out, where they messed up with like Yang, and like they had a conversation and she's like, "You know what? Like I do need to be better. I should be better." And I just that's what
An-
was missing for me.
Another issue that could have been resolved if people just talked.
Right?
yeah.
Just talk it out.
I was also gonna say
Exactly.
I was also going to say this is the part where people are probably going to be like, "Oh, why did he mention movies as part of the spoilers here?" Because they do exactly that in the Ruby Justice League movies, which
They
pisses
do.
me off so much.
The
I
Ruby
say I have a
Justice League
lot of
movies are pretty fun. Yeah.
they're fun, but it's just like I hate that we get so much development from them than we do from the actual show, and it's like
Well, they're canon adjacent,
that pisses me off. Because also
which
just like
basically means it's canon, but they're never gonna mention it in the canon.
but you see, like that pisses me off because that just like, oh, so you're saying that Superman being in Remnant is canon, and that we technically could have
Oh,
had Superman just pull up and beat the crap out of Salem.
Mr. Superman, can you please beat Salem for me? Thank you.
Everybody call up the Justice
Yeah,
League.
it's just I'm just saying because like, if it's canon, it just like it opens that window of like, oh, that's a thing that could happen. So yeah, so it's just like you either open that can of worms, where it's like that could be a thing that happens, or you say it's not canon, and then you nix all the actual development that we got in them.
I've seen a lot of clips, and you told me that in the movies, Yang is actually like, "I'm worried about you, Ruby. You need to slow down." And Ruby's like, "I'm not going anywhere." And it's
Yeah.
just Yang is my favorite character of Team Ruby. I really like her. I just she's hasn't been a great sister in the later volumes, and I think it's unfortunate that they actually showed her being a good sister to Ruby in the Justice League movies. But then my fear is that, once Volume 10 does roll around, they're not going to show, those much needed scenes because they'll be like, "Oh, it was in the Justice League movies. Those are
Yeah, you
canon
don't need any of
Yeah,
those
just
anymore.
just go watch the movie.
Yeah,
By the way, buy
which
our complete digital edition that just released.
again, hashtag not sponsored, but I
You
was gonna
heard
say, just
about that,
imagine
right? How
all
they
the shit
released like a
talking for
complete
just
digital edition for like both parts into one with like a new cover art for it, and John's on the cover art. And I'm like, how dare you put John on the cover art and not on any of my
really
movie covers? Now I'm angry.
just
It's
no,
like
but it's
going back to the Tea Party scene. I think some of the choices that Neo turned into for that was kind of like weird. It's like, why is like Lionheart and Clover here?
yeah. How did she nearly
Like
die?
you could have easily put like even if they didn't die, you could put like other characters like maybe Maria or uh someone else that's better than Lionheart. I mean, like
or someone that Ruby
seriously,
actually cares about.
he thinks he's part of the team.
Yeah, just oh Leo.
every fanfic other than this one funny one fanfic I read, every other fanfic kind of just like makes fun of Lionheart because he's kind of like he's such a bad character.
He really is.
I don't think he has like any fans.
Yeah.
That's so sad.
I mean, the thing is,
It is really sad.
and it's a shame because I like the Cowardly Lion in the actual Wizard of Oz. I feel like they could have done so much more with that, but it's just like he's just a coward. That's all Ironheart is.
Path to explore if they weren't so afraid to do their fondest plot.
Yeah, no,
Yeah, they were probably afraid to do anything with that at that point.
Yeah.
that's such a shame though. 'Cause, like that's when like everything really went downhill for like Blake, Adam, and like any kind of Faunus plotline they could have ever had in it. It's just like it all started the moment that Blake landed that punch on Adam. It just all kind of just went off the rails from there.
Honestly, I got bigger towards
Yeah.
them. I came for Haven, not
I mean, I love that scene 'cause just like I
Souls.
no, just like no,
He
just
just
I
like
no, I
he just
love
goes
that scene so much,
Ree!
but yeah,
My man actually
yeah,
read.
yeah, just went, "Ah!"
He just went Ree.
I think Blake, I think Adam, I think Forsaken Adam, it gave Blake a really good arc of overcoming, that abuse, and I did like what they did with Blake. It's the same with like how they forsake Ruby to like lift John up. I wish they didn't have to like forsake Adam to lift Blake up. Like there's more nuanced ways they could have gone about writing a lot than what
Definitely.
So
they did.
so
I
going
would
back
say
to the point where you were talking about how like they didn't like mourn Adam's death at all after they killed him, they were just like completely fine with it.
just like
Some of the fanfics I've read where like there's this one where literally John accidentally kills Adam and he becomes like a leader of the White Fang instead. But
is this the one where
and
Adam like
like
trips and falls
and
on him?
he turns the like Veil sect of the White Fang into like a vigilante group where they like uh bust up criminals and like expose them for their like bad deeds and stuff. But anyway, the
Mhm.
point is in that fic, Blake literally like mourns Adam. It's like, oh, like he was something to me. Maybe if I just talk with him,
Something
things could
to.
have been different and stuff like that. And they never do
Mhm.
that in the show with Adam because technically they kind of like hinted at like Blake and Adam like being a thing beforehand. So you think there'd be some like emotions there. But Blake just kind of like abandoned like all of them. Of course, Adam was doing like bad things, and Blake had every right to like leave it. But like at the same
Right.
time, it's like you spent some history with him. You think he'd feel like a little bad for like missing the man he used to be into what he became at like volume 6. But
Yeah,
there was
and like
nothing really like that at all.
they had like a really brief moment in volume 7.
They dangled it in front of us like, ooh, look at the shiny. Yeah. Oh no, I know the scene. I got pissed that they did that. Yeah. Yeah.
And Blake's like, I want to make sure like next time we don't have to do that.
It's just like, so you want to talk about it? It's like, no, not really, but yeah.
I did a little bit of that in it, so
As I'm looking forward to getting to
yo,
that part.
yo, sounds like a hype fanfic. I should read it.
I'm hyping this thing up.
I mean, because it is legitimately like I mean, like again, like this isn't this. I'm fully biased. I will fully admit to that because of the fact that I know the writer behind this one, but it's just like I do think that the writing behind it is just so good. I mean, like it's a combination of bias toward I didn't like a lot of what they did in Volume 8, and I think there's a lot of stuff they could have done better, mixed with I know this person, I like what they're doing with it. So, but it's just like. But it just honestly, there's so much that I feel like they could have done with so many different things, and like we've gone into like a lot of different things with it.
That we know better.
Right.
They should do, but that's the power of fanfic. You can make your own thing eventually.
Exactly.
This is it, and it's great.
Just whatever road you feel like that's the beautiful thing about family. Like you can explore all those roads that you feel like they could have or should have taken,
Soul.
and like you kind of restore. Like, did it restore a little bit of that love for Ruby at all
Yeah.
writing it? Okay, which I totally understand.
Kind of like you said, Chris. I was really into it until like the last episode, and it kind of left me to like re-examine, everything that happened. But I still really love the show. I rewatch it sometimes, and I love like drawing. fan art from it, or like writing a whole fan fiction about it, or watching videos. Like I still really do like it, but it was
I
soured a little
I
bit.
completely
Right.
understand that. I think my opinions are definitely skewed by fanfic. You could ask me about any character, like 90% of the characters in the show, and I'll probably be able to tell you something about why I love them, even though they only had like 10 seconds in the show, and yet they had like two like major scenes in like a fanfic I've read. And yeah, I'll be like, yo, this character, man, I love that character so much. They're amazing. They're great. Like you, yeah, let me tell you something. So in that the one I mentioned about John becoming a leader of
The white
the
thing.
White Fang. You know Banesaw, the guy in Volume 2 that Weiss fought with the big chainsaw.
The guy's like, finally, I
Yeah.
get to kill a
So
Schnee.
so they give him like a backstory in like the fic where like he's actually like a really kind person. Like he's a really good cook. He runs like a florist shop, and the reason why he's like that is because like he was like in a mining camp and he got like really treated poorly by like the Schnee Dust Company. So like whenever he like sees a Schnee, he like literally just it's like PTSD like triggers and he gets like completely crazy. And it's like,
Okay,
damn, I actually feel for him.
I love that.
Also, though,
How could you do that out of a character that you've only seen for like 20 seconds? I
can
don't
we get the number to
understand.
that therapist, to the guy who deals with who gives this guy PTSD training because of the fact
They
that
literally give character to Perry. You know Perry?
Perry,
You probably don't
he's a
know
good at
Perry, but he's
bad
like
Perry.
that one guy that Roman calls out to on the train scene in Volume 2.
Oh yeah.
And
My
he's
favorite
in the
scene in all
fic.
of Volume 2, just because let me tell you, I have had a day.
Oh,
Oh,
I have had a day.
yeah, I love that scene so much. No, Roman was
But it's
such a
just like
pleasure to
it's like
have.
amazing how you can like write like these characters that are like portrayed in like few seconds like that way. But I mean, then you
Hmm.
could probably argue, oh, they're not the same character. They're probably out of character. But you wouldn't really know because it's like an interpretation of a character, and
Right, or
that's
just
the
like
magic
different
of
interpretations
fan
of.
fiction.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like
And,
so this is one of my favorite ones. This one's called Night of Salem. This one's really funny. It's like a comedy.
oh yeah, no,
Basically,
I remember this one.
I think I've told you about this one, Moose. You've never read it though. So basically,
I
uh
haven't. I
uh
don't like the sound of it though.
Salem kidnaps John, thinking that John is Ozpin because Ozpin's been like missing, but it turned out that Ozpin actually had COVID and he was just quarantining for like 2 weeks. So Salem's
You
like,
know, just
"Oops,
like
I made a
please.
mistake. Oops, I made a mistake. Oh well, you're going to die now." So right before Salem kills John, John's like, "Oh my goodness, please, I don't want to die. If there's any gods out there, please help me." So I guess like one of the gods is like amused by this, so like he uses his magic to turn like Salem back into like her regular human form, so she like loses her
You could just
power of
do
the
it all.
grim. So it becomes like a comedy where like they're trying to like take John to Vale and like also teach him, but also try to like because they think it's like a semblance that turns Salem that way. So it's like you gotta practice your semblance and stuff so you could turn your queen back into her normal form and stuff, and then it turns into like a romance between John and Salem.
Yeah, and I just don't like
It's
that.
it's
Makes me
actually pretty
sick.
funny though. Like so, there's this one scene where I guess Raven's tribe like Vernal and some bandits like kidnap Salem. So they're like taking her to like the main camp and Raven's there, and it's like they're talking and Raven suddenly realizes like it's Salem who they captured. So literally, as soon as Raven realizes it, she literally opens a portal and runs away. Because she's like, "Oh crap, it's Salem! I'm afraid of
So she's,
Salem!" And then she just
so
runs.
she's shits herself.
She runs to like Tai Yang and she's like, "I'm afraid, help!"
Damn that. I mean, I was gonna say, like, given some stuff I've seen lately with like Raven from like stuff we did, like the one of the comments that we got in our last video, like got me to look into like some of the comics and some of the stuff like that for the earlier like stuff that we never got to see between the stuff.
I
Like
do own some of the comics too.
I started looking into some of them, and it's like they show a whole other side of Raven that we really like never got to see. Like, there's a scene where I think like Ruby and Yang are outside in their yard, and they meet this talking Raven. Guess who it is? And I was gonna
It
say, and
must
she
be
starts like,
Crow.
yeah, I was like, yeah, no, totally, 100% it's Crow. Hmm. Yeah. Well, I mean, Crowth the Raven, nevermore. But I was saying, what do we call it? Like Raven starts telling them like all this smack talk about Summer, and I interpreted that not as like smack talk, but as much as like she felt guilty about something, which I don't know if that again at this point it's like I don't even know if that's an intentional choice on their part anymore or what, but
I I know Volume 5 is like a lot of people really don't like it. I didn't
I love it.
I, the ending where Yang like confronted Raven in the vault, and she's like, "Yeah, I'm scared, but like I'm still standing here." Like that's one of my favorite
That
scenes
was a
because
very powerful scene. Yeah.
Yeah, it was.
I love it when they actually give the main four like their own moments.
Like focus.
I think is and Summer, there's just so much we don't know, like you said, and there's so much context we need to fully understand their characters and the story. Because all we know right now, which I told you, is
Yeah.
all we know is that Summer, took the lamp and asked the question, which was the same question Ruby asked, which was like either what Oz is hiding or like how do we beat Salem. It was one of those questions. And then Summer and Raven went off on this mission, and then Summer didn't come back. So
Or is it?
Whew.
I was like, do we even know if that is what they left on, or if it, because like I thought that she like we didn't even know if that was the mission, or if someone like if someone left for something else, and then yeah, like, you think that is? Yeah, that's just it. We don't know.
10 volumes in almost. It's like, what happened to Ruby's mom? We
Yeah.
don't know. It's just
I,
why should we care? Which we did talk
I've
about.
actually seen interpretations where instead of Summer, it's actually Lionheart who takes Raven to get the lamp, and that's when they find out that Salem is immortal. So that's why Lionheart like betrays Ozpin, and Raven doesn't want anything to do with Ozpin anymore.
I have an issue with that, if that's the case, though, because wouldn't that mean that Leo would have known that Raven was the maiden all along, and like could have reported that to Salem at any given point, or like, because I mean, like, when Volume 5 rolled around, he didn't know who the maiden
Oh,
was.
that's a good point, actually.
I don't
Oh,
think Lionheart's that deep.
Yeah, I mean,
a
he
plot
could be that
hole.
deep. It's a good, like, he could
No,
be that deep, and I'm fine with it. But it's just like if that was the case, then he would have known and would have probably said that to Salem like frame one to save his own hide. But then it's also like I remember like Crow was saying like I know where the Spring Maiden is, and Leo's like, what you do? And he was trying
Yeah.
to get that out of Crow for that.
you're correct.
Yeah,
I guess
sorry,
that
I'm
theory I
sorry,
thought was
buddy.
no that theory I thought was just wrong. That's fine.
Yeah,
Theories are
no,
just theories.
yeah. Oh, Ruby theory.
They're very fun.
I mean,
Uh,
yeah, so you first, Chris. I have theories I know
I
that
got
are
a
wrong,
crazy
but
one.
yeah, what's up?
The
Hit me.
reason why the Osprey let John into Beacon even with like no like crappy transcripts, because obviously there's no way Osprey would actually like not be able to tell he's not qualified, was because that maybe the arc line is somehow related to Salem, which has something to do with like the fairy tales. Maybe that's a big theory I've heard about. Like the
Okay.
fairy tales or remnant book that came out. I think that's
Yeah.
something has something to do with that. So that's a theory I think.
See, I do like that a lot, but I guess one of the points I will give Jean, like you did say, Moose, is how he is like the underdog, and I feel like given his family like a special heritage or history would kind of take away from like, how he is kind of a nobody, but he made himself a somebody. You know what I mean?
Right, like he like doesn't
Exactly.
have like silver eyes. Like he's that one anime character is like no special powers, no special destiny. He's the Rock Lee of this. Yeah. Yeah, he is. He really is. But just like he I mean, like usually the stereotypical anime boy like has like some kind of like power that like, gives him that. Like Deku eventually got one for all in MHA, and that's what made him like special and that kind of thing. But it's like here, Jean has like nothing that should be giving him a shot against any of these stuff. But he's just like he's doing it earnestly through intense training and that kind of thing, and he's doing it by his own hands and that kind of thing. And that's what I respect in Jean
He
is just that like he's doing all of this not because of like any training he had prior or anything like that. He's doing it just because he's working hard and he wants it that badly.
he does have an unusually large amount of aura compared to a normal person.
Yeah, which that is true, but like even then is like it's an interesting point, but it's like they didn't really, I guess, do much with it. Even with like the reveal of his semblance when we finally got that in volume 5, it's like we haven't really done much with that since then. Like it was a big shock when we got like, oh my god, Jean has a semblance, and then never mentioned ever again. And then
Yeah. Is his semblance is that he can expand his aura, right?
so he can share it with other people. I
So
think like he can
his
like
semblance is basically that like he can send his aura into others to like enhance their healing properties, while also to like increase like the abilities of other people's semblance. Like in the first scene in Volume 6 when he helps Ren to conceal the train from Grim because he's using
Right.
his aura to do so. So it's kind of just like enhancing other people's abilities and also their healing capabilities, which is like he's like literally the perfect medic and support character for that. And I really dig that.
I like it too. I like his semblance.
Like it's interesting, and like I'd say like in the fanfic I'm reading now with Relic of the Future, like they explore a lot of kind of like, well, they don't really touch on his semblance much, but like it becomes a big like focal point of like it's something people recognize with him and that kind of thing, and it's like it's a powerful ability, and when I'm sure that that's probably going to come into play something later on, and don't spoil it for me, Chris, I swear.
Wait a minute,
But
did you say Relic of the Future? Why,
I
that's a
said Relic of,
fanfic I haven't even talked about yet. So let me
yeah,
tell you about Relic of the Future right now. So basically, this is like uh John and team have won. They've beaten Salem. They're all happy except wait a minute. Everyone
yeah,
else is dead but John. Everyone has sacrificed themselves to like
including
destroy the
Salem.
other person. So John, saddened, he goes up and he sees that Salem's actually still alive. Not like
It's
alive,
barely
alive, but she's
hanging
like
on.
she's like impaled and hanging on. So she goes over to
Yeah.
Salem and Salem's like bargaining for her life and she's like, you know what? How would you like to go and do this all over again? And John's like, what? And she's like, I can send you to the past,
So
and
she
you could
totally
try
has
to.
that power.
And well, she uses it through the power of the relics,
Which
uh,
totally have that power.
which totally happens. Totally has that power. Yes, yes. Uh, and uh, and she's like, oh, we can have you do it all over again. You could try to do it a better way. And John's like, but if I do it, that means you also have a chance to win. It's like, so what? At least your friends will still be alive. And John's like, you know
It's worth
what?
it.
That's a good deal. So they do that, and it turns out, uh, John thinks that, oh, well, she's just gonna send me back before Beacon started, like maybe a year or so. So he goes back in time, and he's like by like the Grimlands, which is by Vacuo in the fanfic and stuff. He goes to Vacuo and he sees a little child. You want to know who the little child is?
Salem.
It's Sun.
Oh.
Yeah, I
So he
mean,
realizes that he actually went back 10 years in the past.
like you just see Son like getting picked on or something like that. He steps in and saves him, and then he sees the hair, and it's like, "Wait a minute, kid, what's your name?" And he's like, "It's Son,"
No, he doesn't
and you
save Sun.
realize
He
like,
doesn't save
"Oh
Sun.
shit,
Sun was going to pickpocket John, but he
that's what it
caught
was."
him.
Yeah,
Yes, because he's like he's kind of like homeless. He's like an orphan, and so
in this
he's like,
version
oh
of
no,
reality, yes.
oh no, he's back 10 years in the past, and he's like, oh, I better not make any changes. But you know what he actually did by accident, Alia? Let me tell you what he did by accident.
What did he
He
do?
saved he saved a woman's life. Basically, in the tribe, in like this tribe, like he got found by this like tribe that was traveling Vacuo, and like he traveled with them and stuff, and he showed him his semblance, and they're like, oh, you are our brother because you healed our men, and that makes you a part of our tribe now.
It's
And
a
it's like, oh,
camaraderie, that kind of
and
thing.
like camaraderie stuff. It's really like wholesome and stuff. It's really cool. And they're like, "Oh, there was this woman we found. Oh, can you heal her too?" And John's like, "Okay, I'm gonna heal her because obviously he's a
It
good guy."
does
So he
it.
heals
Yep.
her. He goes along his way. So you want to know who that woman was? That woman was Summer Rose.
Oh.
John ended
Yeah.
up saving Ruby's mom, thus
By
keeping her
complete
alive
accident.
by
That
complete accident. After he after he realized, man, I probably should not change the past so drastically.
and then
And
it's just like, oh,
and actually, you were talking about Raven earlier. This fic is actually a very Raven centered fic as well, and it kind of
is
shows
it?
Raven in a different light, in a good way, and it's really fun. And I
That's
actually
awesome.
it's probably one of his longer fic. This fic's like 170 chapters,
Yeah, I'm only on
so
chapter 18 over here, by the way. Also stuck on like episode 10 or something like that of Ninjago. So yeah, I do. I do.
so this fic is just it's a really good fic. It's very long, and it also makes
Yeah,
you see
it
other
is.
characters in a light like Emerald, because what happens in this fic is John actually adopts Emerald. That way,
Cause
Cinder doesn't get her hands on her.
Oh.
yeah, and Emerald ends up being like a really like sweet character. I mean, I will say that from like what I've read of it so far. Chris, you want to say anything more to that?
It gets
I've really
it
enjoyed.
gets way better,
Yeah,
and
no, it
I,
does. It
honestly, when
does.
you read it, you're gonna love Emerald so much. I'm telling you that right now. You're gonna be like, Emerald is such a cutie. It's the
I mean,
best.
I'm already saying that as it is, but I also know like the moment that the show starts up again, I'm gonna lose all that love and faith for her, like frame
Oh,
one. But
I know, absolutely,
So,
100%.
kind going back to our theories question,
mhm.
I guess I have a few theories, but I guess
Well,
the one
let's
more
hear them.
connected. Okay, the one more connecting to Emerald. I told you this. I don't think this is going to happen, but I personally wish that Emerald was like at the end of Volume 8, she's still on Salem's side and she's like leading them to Vacuo
Maybe.
because it just she knew that Salem's like next target is Vacuo and she knows that Mercury and Tyrion are already in Vacuo.
Hmm.
When everyone's planning their plan to evacuate them with the relic, she doesn't say anything like, "Hey, maybe like
We want to
we
be able
should
to look.
They could have gone
Yeah.
to they could have gone to Mistral. Exactly, could have gone to
Or something
Mistral
like
to
that. Yeah.
Vacuo.
just makes sense to me there. I know they're like there's huntsmen there, they can protect people,
There's
but
Team Coffee.
to be Salem's next target, so I just don't know why they would dump an entire kingdom who just escaped a war to go fight another war. So
Yeah.
yeah.
It's actually really funny that you mentioned that because Moose has mentioned that theory to me, and
Because
it's really
she's the one who
funny.
told it to me. She's the one who told.
You
Yeah.
want to know how much whiplash I got when I realized that Emerald like betrayed Cinder? I got
No,
so much
what?
whiplash, and the reason why I got whiplash is because
Let's.
in most of the fanfics I've read, it's usually Mercury who ends up betraying Cinder
Oh,
because
interesting.
That makes sense.
Mercury
Because
doesn't really have any allegiance to Cinder. They
yeah,
just kind of picked him up after he killed his father.
pretty much.
While
Yeah.
Emerald, Cinder picked her up and raised her, and she's definitely like she's like very reliant and thankful to
Mother
Cinder.
figure
So she doesn't
essentially.
care if she's a tool.
It was way too quick for me, and the main characters trusted her way too quickly, and
Which I'd
it
agree
just
with.
didn't feel right for me. I really do like the idea of her eventually coming to the good side, but it just needed to be more like slow and like she needed to have like I hope this will come up later, but like her and
I
Cinder needed
mean,
to have like a confrontation about it.
if
Yeah.
if you really think of if you think about it though, the scene I think it's in volume 4 when they finally get introduced to Salem for the first time. They're kind of like all freaked out. So maybe it was kind of like then the doubts were like starting to surface in Emerald's head, and then as it progressed, she saw the more things and how others were
Yeah,
treated and stuff. So
and then
maybe it was there, but it just wasn't shown really well.
yeah, there was a scene in Volume 6 where like Emerald and Mercury like they fought each other and they had a really good conversation about that. And I
Yes.
think they did have the good pieces. It just like felt like she did a 180 and I wish she just had a gradual arc instead of being like, "Oh, I'm on the good side now."
Yeah, I'm a
Like
good guy.
I
Yay.
yeah, yeah, like I love the idea of it. I didn't like the execution of it.
Mhm.
Um yeah.
I agree. I do think that, however, I disagree with your theory. I think Emerald is actually on the good side and she's not going to betray them
I do
because
too.
of the scene
Yeah.
where uh, Cinder and Neo were looking at like they used the lamp and they saw them and she saw that Emerald was with them and I think she had like a very saddened look on her face to see Emerald was betraying her. If
Yeah.
uh, Unless I don't think Emerald would be the one to think of this idea on her own. I think she would tell Cinder it because she'd be want her to like praise her and stuff. So I think
100%. Yeah.
Emerald actually is done. But as you guys said, it was not really shown that well, and a lot of the information that we got kind of points to it maybe possibly her not actually betraying Cinder, or maybe she actually did. Who knows? We just have to wait till the next volume to find out.
Exactly.
I mean, like, I'm smack in the middle between like kind of both of you on this, where it's just like, I think that she's not done with Cinder, but is done with Salem. Because I think like just there's the divide of like she's been afraid of like we've seen she's been afraid of Salem since the very beginning, since we got introduced to Salem. She never liked Salem. Yeah,
Like she has kind of like blind loyalty to Cinder, but then when like she realized it was a lot bigger than that, she's like, oh, I need to like get out of here.
yeah, kind of that's where I'm seeing. It. But it's like I think like she wouldn't do any like if she could do anything to help Cinder, she would. But she also wants to like be like, okay, I signed up to like work with Cinder and do these like smaller scale things or something like that, not for this like whole scale like elimination of all mankind kind of thing.
Exactly. Like even a whole like Emerald centered episode. We got
Yeah,
because I think it's a really good dilemma for her, and it should have been treated with more like
care.
care.
Yeah.
Yeah, but if they could do that, then they could have also fixed Ironwood. So
And
Right.
there's a number of things they could have fixed. There's a number of things they
yeah,
could have
there
fixed if they could.
is. Good thing we had fan fiction.
Uh huh. Really was.
I honestly don't know how I'd be alive right now.
Great how I can tell it's really important to you, and I think that's really awesome. how people have that
Yes,
like escape.
I
Mhm.
really love Ruby fan fiction a lot.
Yeah, no, that's great. And my other segueing off of that, I guess my other theory is, Chris, like I think this was off the video. I don't know, but when you said why Salem, her motive, I agree. I think it's because she just wants to die.
Mhm.
Because we know she wants the relics, we know she wants to summon the gods, but we don't know her end goal. You know, does she want to like wipe out all of humanity? Does she want to just like get back at the gods? Does she want revenge, or does she just want to finally die? And I really like the interpretation that she's doing all of this is just to die because we've seen in the like the when they with the lamp with when they start
Well,
she is like a terrible person. She did awful things. It's just it adds a lot more layers of tragedy to the story, and I like that interpretation.
Well,
I
absolutely, yeah.
really hope that's what they go with because it would be really like just kind of like a surprise, maybe a bit of a plot twist if like the person of all evil personification is just trying to find a way to die, because she obviously can't die no matter how hard she tries. And I've seen a few fanfics interpret that, which is why I also fully believe that that might be what her end goal is. But who knows? Maybe there's something that we don't even know about that they haven't revealed yet, and that's why who knows,
Mhm.
they could do anything they want and I'll just be like, you know what, I'm just gonna go live in my fan fiction world. Thank you, Canon Ruby.
Yeah. I mean, like, the thing is, I do think like that is the interpretation that I think they're going for is that it is like, and again, from what I've interpreted from it, like, I do think it is that she does want to die. Like, she just has a desire of like, I've lived for too long, I want to die now. But I also think like there's that level of like spite of like, why do all these other people get that chance to, or that kind of thing, or like this like hatred she's developed for the creation of the gods because of that they put this curse on her. So she wants to put the gods in a position where they have to wipe out everything they've created and kind of like,
See, I like the inclusion of the gods. I like
mhm,
the lore. I
yeah.
just think it's not tight enough because I feel like the gods are just like omnipotent and they can kind of do anything. And so I kind of see the gods as the main villain because I really liked Salem's backstory with Oz when they did find that out in volume 6.
Mhm.
But it's just it didn't feel like she did enough bad things to get cursed with like eternal life. And then they're like, oh, we can't bring Ozpin back. You have to learn the true meaning of life. And then they bring Ozpin back anyway. And they're like, yo, can you like defeat your crazy wife?
That we made immortal and caused this problem in the first place, you know?
That is that's
Yeah.
actually really funny because that's kind of like the ending of another fanfic I read from the same author.
It's just it's just like, can
uh
you clean our mess up for us? Thanks.
in this fanfic, I'm sorry, no, you go ahead.
No, 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 it's okay. You go.
Okay, so this fanfic is called White Sheep. Basically in this one, John is Salem's son. Basically, John's dad got with Salem, so instead of his mom, it's Salem who's their mom, and he wants to be a huntsman. Even though he's like a grim monster that was born from Salem, so he goes to Beacon still, and shit. It's a comedy, so shenanigans happen, but it ends with like basically them getting everyone together to like summon the gods of light and darkness to fight them and or try to convince them to like let the world stay the way it is, and obviously the gods are like, no, we're not gonna listen to you because you guys haven't learned anything. So they fight them, and it ends up with the main characters convincing the god of darkness to that his brother was just unfair and like leading him to like do many things. Because it's like, oh, isn't it unfair how like your brother got upset that Salem went to you after he went to the god of light to ask you for a favor? Why does it always have to be the god of light who gets a favor and not you? And he's like, you know what? My brother is kind of an asshole, so he kind of beats up his brother and sends him away. And now they all like praise the god of darkness, and everything's all fine.
You know what? I really like that because I think the God of Light is worse than darkness or whatever it's called, light and dark. I don't know.
I think that is what the brothers is the
The
main thing
brother
like I've heard.
gods, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So
I always found it weird that at the end of Volume 9 they just confirmed the gods came from the ever after.
I'm not a big fan of that, to
Yeah.
be honest.
No, but you know when you said earlier that uh the gods are probably going to be like the final bad guys of like the show, I think I agree with that.
Yeah, I think that
Especially
would be
because
really
they brought up
upsetting.
that point. Why else would they bring up that point that the gods came from the ever after? There's
Yeah,
no
and
reason to do that. So I think maybe
Well, I mean,
maybe by the end they'll work with Salem to defeat the brother gods or something. I don't know how, but
I
maybe
think
that's how it's gonna end.
we've tossed around the idea of Salem getting redeemed, and I'm like 50-50 on it. Uh,
mhm,
Like on one hand, I can't excuse the terrible things she's done, but I guess I feel
absolutely
like in
not.
Adam's situation, knowing her backstory, like I do feel really bad for her. I think she was just like the gods took advantage of her to mold her into what she became, and I just like I I would like to see her get revenge on the gods, that'd be pretty
Do
satisfying.
you
Yeah.
want to know how this whole situation could have been avoided?
If they talk to each other.
If Ozpin or Ozma and Salem just talked.
Yep. No, that would have helped.
And, Ozma didn't try to run away with their children. And they
Or,
talked it out. Maybe things could
mhm.
have been different. But then we wouldn't have a story. So I guess I'm kind of happy they didn't talk.
Yeah,
And we wouldn't
maybe.
be here talking about Ruby, wouldn't we? Now, would we?
Bothers me though about that is the whole theme of the show is how humanity has to come together to defeat the bad guys, right? The whole theme of it is that like we're stronger together, we need each other, we can't do it alone, we can't let Salem divide us. And
Right.
they spent so much time, especially in Volume 8, being divided.
That they're doing the job for her at this point.
However the show ends, I'm satisfied with it because I feel like Volume 8 was the perfect opportunity for everyone to come together and be like, look, we might have different ideas, but we all have a common enemy. Let's come together, let's talk it out, and figure out a way for everyone to be happy. But so
They
now it's
did.
just gonna take Keith however it ends, because it's like he had the
Yeah.
opportunity to do that from the very before.
I
I
mean,
mean, going back, yeah,
mhm.
Volume 7 was really great until like the
It's
ending of
so
Volume
good.
7. Like,
So good.
it's
Yeah.
just like Volume 8 should have just never happened. Honestly,
Hmm.
Yeah. I
they should
mean,
have
like,
just did it differently.
yeah, do it differently 100%. I was saying like, there are things about Volume 8 I feel like we definitely need for the sake of moving the story forward and that kind of thing. And I feel like not so like here's the thing. I one thing I love about Salem, I think I touched on this in the last video, is like I love her whole like MO of like she divides people and gets them to do the destruction for her. Like she doesn't have to really like she doesn't have to send an army of groups. She doesn't have to have someone directly attack. She can just be in the room or be a part of the conversation and the rest of the thing will just fall into place for her. I like that for her. But I will say I do agree. Like I, as much as like I like that, and I like that kind of like she wormed her way enough into them that they weren't able to get together. But I do feel like there maybe should have been at least like an attempt of like they were coming together, but then it just like wasn't enough. And when they see that it's not enough, that's what kind of like is one of those like commitment things where it's just like you want to see those results now, and they want to see like we've been fighting for so long, like where's the ending to this, and see that it doesn't work, and then that brings them apart. But
See, the problem is that in Volume 7, there was a few lines where the characters were self-aware, like they know that Salem's trying to divide them, right? Like there was
right.
like the Aesop's where she's like, this kind of division is playing right into Salem's hands. And then there's like when Ironwood was given his speech to like in Volume 7 when him and Robin like came together very briefly. He's
Hmm.
like, we can't like give it to Fear. That's what she wants. So like the characters know she's trying to get into their skin. So that's the problem
Right.
is that they know that's what she's doing, but then they let it happen.
Right.
And I do agree. I like how she has that presence and how that's what she's trying to do. I just feel like at this point in the story, the characters should be like, we're stronger than that. You know what I mean?
I mean, like I agree to that, but it's also like I can say I've been on the receiving end of so many people who just like are that manipulative and that kind of thing, and just like you can eventually get to a point of that mindset where it's just like there's nothing you can do about it. That's kind of like what I wish they could have done a bit more with Ironwood. Like if they said that he just genuinely like just let that fear get to him, and then that caused him to make a lot of bad decisions, I would have been a bit more okay with that. 'Cause again, I've experienced that, I've seen that, and it's like
Right.
I think with enough pushing, Salem could have gotten them to that point no matter what. But I also do see what you're saying with that of like they should be a little bit more like aware of it and be more like ready to stop it. But like consider, and I'm sorry, Chris, I know you haven't seen any of Cobra Kai, and I apologize for this in advance. But I know with Terry and Danny, for example, of like you have scenes where Danny like knows that's what Terry's trying to do, but he still walked into every single trap that Terry set up. And it's just like it's all the mind game of it. And it's like if you know what you're doing and you know how to play into that, I think like it doesn't matter how much you know is coming. They know just the buttons to press to get you to fall into that anyway, or force it where it's like you either back yourself into even further corner or you dive headfirst into a trap.
That's true. I do like that, and I like how that Salem's that's her whole thing. I really do. I get what you're saying.
Yeah, like that's again like my favorite kind of villain in like any medium I see is someone who is like who can just rip someone to shreds by knowing how to get in their head because it's just like the battle of anything, any characters that come up together starts with the battle in the mind, and it's
Exactly.
like if you win that battle, pretty much the rest of it is set in stone for you. And I think like Blake and Adam are such a beautiful example of that, where it's like, and again they could have played a bit more into this, I feel, but like Blake had the impression that Adam was this like scary person. I had this impression that he's like this unstoppable being, and that affected her fighting and that kind of thing.
Same with Yang.
Same
Yang
with
felt
Yang. Yep,
instantly.
she did, which again that affected her ability to like respond in those moments and that kind of thing. But Salem, I think, like leans definitely a lot more into that because that is like her whole thing. That's her whole shtick. Chris, if you want to say anything to that,
Um, I
sorry
think
about
that
that.
fear. Sorry about
Mhm.
what?
No, just that's just the whole, just the
Uh,
whole ramble I went on. Just the.
it's fine. Don't worry. I think that fear is a very powerful motivator for good and bad things.
Mhm.
Why do we work? Because we are afraid of being homeless. Fear makes us work. Why do we take our medicines? Because we're afraid to get sick. Fear is a powerful motivator in that. So I think fear can be a very good thing and bad thing. And going back to the Ironwood decision, he just made the wrong call. He was on the wrong end of fear. But end of the day, a lot of actions we choose are very motivated by fear. See the song, the Volume 7 ending theme, which is named Fear. It's a very powerful song, and if you guys haven't listened to it, you should definitely listen
I
to it
love that
because
song. The
that song
energetic
is
song.
amazing, and it really puts into perspective a lot of the choices that characters make.
I love that song.
So
That's a fantastic
I
song.
it
gotta re-listen to
Fear
this
is an
song. I don't remember
amazing
it.
song.
I also love the Ozpin's monologue at the end of Volume 7 about fear, if you remember that.
I know he
I
gives one,
I
and I
do
can
know what
remember
you're
the
talking
general
about. Yes.
beats.
Who's like falling from Atlas and like Penny becomes the maiden. It's just like a lot. It's like a montage, and he's like given this whole conversation about like giving into fear, but then he like spins it around to a more hopeful message. And I
Right,
just
yeah.
like that whole thing is just it's so powerful, and I
If
definitely agree
only
with what you're saying, Chris.
if only Ozpin wasn't hiding an Oscar and talked to Ironwood, things would be different.
Thank you, thank
Yeah.
you. That's literally like all of Volume 7 and 8 could have been avoided if Ozpin like was like, "Hi guys, let's like talk this out."
You know, instead he decided to be a little whitey.
But I mean, like, no, stop being a child, Ozpin. You're over 1,000,000 years old or
Right?
something.
Like Oscar,
Yeah.
I think man,
Yeah.
just like sit back at Oscar and like watch this whole thing unfold because a lot of the and like you can argue like Ozpin was like locked away and Oscar like he was like he couldn't come out, but I think he was like choosing not to come out. I think they like confirmed that in
Yeah,
volume
they
8 with him.
confirmed that he was just like there and listening, but not doing
Yeah,
Yeah, he could
anything.
have come back at any point.
because a lot
Another
of like
issue that could have been avoided if they just talked.
Ironwood and Oscar have a lot of conversations in Volume 7, and in like all those conversations, Ironwood's like, "Man, I wish Ozpin was here. I could really use Ozpin's advice. I need his help right now." And then Ozpin's just like hiding Oscar. He's like, "I don't help him."
It's just like, but they're all still mad at me. I can't come out now.
Ozpin's just like sweating in the
Yeah.
back of
So,
Oscar's mind. It's just like, what, what should I do?
nah.
They hate me. And
Yep.
then everything just goes wrong. I'm like, well, I better come out now and make myself awesome. And he just does that really cool speech.
Yeah. Which I mean, yeah. But
Man,
I.
let me
Mhm.
tell you, fan fiction, especially the one that Moose is reading, it really like makes me think differently about Ozpin as
Like
well,
in a good
like
way or like a bad
Yeah. I mean,
in a bad way.
interesting.
I'd say 50-50 on the. Cause, like, sometimes like I've loved
At
Osmond as a character since day one. So I mean,
at the,
like.
at the end of the
Mhm.
day, Ozpin is trying to do the same thing that Salem's doing. By beating Salem, he too will die. So in a sense, he's technically using the people around him to further his goals, which is kind
That's
of like,
Hmm,
I'm sorry.
I mean,
the goes.
like I was saying, you're not wrong on that. I mean, like I never got the impression that he necessarily wanted to die because I mean like a lot of what I got from Oz was just kind of like eventually just the like I'll never forget like when Oz and Salem had their initial division like Oz one of the versions of Oz looks into the mirror and sees Ozma and they're like what are we doing and I just love that scene of just like he's realizing like man we've really gone like far from like what we were supposed to represent who we used to be and it's like not so much like he has a hero complex. He wants to be able to like save the day or fix his mistakes and that kind of like Oz. His whole thing and the thing I love so much about Oz is he is a character built on regret. He's a character that just like his whole thing is he wants to redeem not necessarily himself but like fix the mistakes he's made, which mostly revolve around Salem and trusting Salem and that kind of thing.
Per se. I don't think he had any ill intent because he got sick and he died, and that's why Salem tried to bring him back. So he had no say in any of that because he was like dead.
I mean,
Oh, of
I also
course,
just
I,
love
I
he just
agree with
keeps coming
that.
back and dying again, just like
But uh,
She come back or not to beat Salem, and he's like it wasn't his fault that she became like a monster, but he felt guilty about it. He felt like it was his responsibility to come fix it. And so I think it's a lot of like fear with Ozpin. He's like afraid to like let other people into it because he thinks this is like his burden alone, or he doesn't want people to like like Raven and like Gretchen, like Hazel's sister. He doesn't want them to like leave him when they find out the truth that like Salem can't be killed. So like I understand why he didn't like tell everyone like, hey, Salem can't be killed. This is my past because he wanted to protect them from it. But then eventually, when they do find out, they're mad at him, whatever. But like I understand why he did what he did, and that's why
right.
I wish we had that more moment of realization because she did the same thing he did in Volume 7 is she lied about Salem to people they should have been trusting. And it was just a really good parallel and I wanted her to just see more of his mindset. And I'm not saying he did everything right. Like, maybe he should have told them, I don't know. But it just it
See, the worst part is, it's not even like they were just like Oz. They were just like someone else made a video about this, and I thought it was so funny. They drew a parallel to Ruby and Roman, and because say who he like okay, obviously he'll cheat and survive. Yep, there it is. Yep, he lied to Ironwood, stole. Yep, cheated. Yep,
that's which I think is amazing writing because
yep.
they in like her quest to do good, she ended up doing bad, which she did mess up. She took the relic, she made Atlas fall. That's her fault.
Yeah, that's my bad. That's my
She had good intentions,
right.
but it ended up causing a lot more harm than good. And I just really wish she had that moment where she's like, wait, we're kind of the like, we're kind of like the bad guys here. And
Yeah,
they just needed that moment, but instead the show's like, no, you're perfect. You didn't do anything wrong. Don't change. Like we love you. Other people are bad. You just did what you could. Which like again, I don't think they're bad. They made bad decisions
good
for
people
things to
often
do
do.
good.
Hmm.
yeah,
And
and people
it's
make bad decisions when they're trying to do good. There's nothing
yeah,
wrong with that. You just have to accept those decisions and move on and try not to make those same mistakes again.
Yeah, fix him.
exactly. Exactly. And they just needed more of that. 'Cause they would have given Ruby really good character development if she just sat back and like looked at her actions and was like, maybe I need to like, reevaluate myself and like
Are
try
you
to do
saying
better.
another problem could have been avoided if Ruby just talked to
Wait,
herself?
what? Oh my god, no
Amazing.
way.
The power of communication.
No way.
So
No way.
there's a reason you have two communications majors here. Yeah. Power of communication, baby.
It forces you to relook at, stuff you love and be like, better. But like, I'm gonna be so honest with you. Like what happened to the show is part of the reason why I was like I want to be a screenwriter was because I like and I'm not saying again I can do better. I'm just like I want to do better. I don't want to like create a show and then like disappoint people and like betray the characters. I was like I want to learn how I can avoid that so that like, that's why I'm here. Honestly, is because of Ruby. So shout out to Ruby.
Yeah, no,
Yo,
100%. I
shout
mean, like,
out to Ruby. Gotta be one of my favorite people.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, Ruby's inspired like so much in myself, like where I wanted to go with a lot of different things, the person I wanted to become. But then there is also just like the storytelling aspect of it, which similarly, like I want to be able to try to like, and not necessarily I want to surpass them, but it's just like I want to be able to tell stories that I guess don't have as many of these like moments where it's just like questioning the characters and that kind of like I want these characters to feel genuine and that kind of thing. So it definitely does.
So it's what
The
you
characters are
know.
definitely well written, and yeah, as you guys say, it's what helps to draw me to the series. They're not very like one dimensional like some are, or they're not like very tropey. They're definitely like actual characters with concerns, and that's why I really do love and appreciate them, and why I can see them in all the settings I've seen with all the fan fictions I've read, and how they can like act differently in those situations, and it's really awesome.
Like it all works.
Yes, I agree. But there's
I
like
mean, oh my God,
there's so many good
we're
choices out there. Well, what's up?
we're all we're all on the same page.
Yeah, I mean, because just like we all come from so many different places with like what we want to say with a lot of it, but like we could all like eventually like see like yeah, like there's that one similarity that we all have, those many similarities that we all have in like all the things that we do or don't see when it comes to the show, or what things we do or don't agree on. There's also another like I know we were talking about theories before. There's one theory that I know you told me about before, which I actually did want to discuss with everyone now that everyone is here. I was
What
saying if you're
theory
willing
is
to
that?
what's so you know very well what theory this is, Chris, because I remember the discussions we had in this one. But this
Oh,
is a
is it
theory
that
you.
theory?
It's that theory. I was because you were the one who brought this up to me before.
Okay.
Come on, man. I was saying so. I was saying it is. Yeah, something you knew exactly because just like because honestly, I love this theory. Like I think that this theory has like a lot of merit to it. But like this is the main theory. I also wanted to hear what you two have to say for.
This is like still being on the evil side is I don't necessarily think this theory is true. I just think
Yeah,
it would be a nice angle if they considered it. And I think it's a little too late now for them to pull this plot twist, but I think in like, volume 5 or something they could have been like, yo. Because
I think that it's not a really good theory.
yeah, I mean
I
I
love
don't
it.
think it's like anything. I just like it's the whole thing with like gang tie not tie gang
There you go. The
being
other
like
one.
like members of his team, and then Raven had gang, and then like 2 years later Summer had Ruby, so it just he moved on so quickly from Raven to Summer, and
Yeah,
I just think that whole situation is really weird to me.
like hokey a little bit.
Yeah,
It would be more like maybe after Raven left, maybe Summer was there to like help Tai Yang mourn, and maybe through that mourning they fell in love, and they had Ruby. And I think that's very possible. Maybe it was a
Still
little
feels hokey.
pushed on because of the fact that Raven left, so Summer was there for him. But I could see that happening logically.
Again, still feels hokey. I stand by saying it still feels hokey.
Uh People are very desperate when it comes to love. I'll tell you that.
maybe it was an accident.
Yeah, I mean,
Yes,
I
but
can
also
so I mean,
you mentioned that you felt like
mhm,
with Crow was Ruby's father, and the reason
Mhm.
why he didn't want to say anything was because of the fact that, because of his bad luck, something bad could happen if Crow was around, right?
mhm,
Mhm.
yeah.
But then why would Crow sometimes visit them at their house if he didn't want
See,
to be anywhere near
I
Ruby? Because
think
if he went there to go visit them, then it wouldn't really make any sense.
that's true. I think also there just feels like a lot of clues to me that like Crow and Summer were a thing.
Hmm.
Like there's that scene in volume 7 where he's like, I like brats,
Yeah, like I
and
got a thing for Brits.
he's
Yeah,
like, I'm Summer and being a thing. And I think they both share a lot of traits with Ruby, like Crow's sight and like their hair color. I don't see a lot of Ruby like in Tai Yang, and I just feel like it would have been a more logical thing for them to do. And while
yeah.
I don't think they were ever intended it, I don't think it's going to happen. I just think it would have been kind of a cute little thing, you know?
I mean, I say the hope is still there, and I mean, like at least to the point of like why he still comes to visit is like when you have a child like that. I just don't think like you can like in your own heart stay away for long. And I think like Crow is always like Crow always regrets what he lost, and it's just like he regrets not being able to still have those moments with his friends and that kind of thing.
This is kid. It's like, surprise.
I mean,
That could be a possibility.
Yeah, I guess it's just like he can never know. He can never know.
I just imagine that Crow was just really drunk one day, and that's just how it happened.
I mean, I could see it. Yeah, messing with the
I
subword
can't wait for
switch.
them to reveal that that Crow is actually Ruby's father in that one little Zoom thing after Volume 10. Yep, totally gonna
Yeah.
happen.
Oh my God.
Time, but here's some important information.
Oh,
Yeah,
that's
sorry
it. God.
guys. It's not that important to the show, so don't worry about it.
No, I don't think it's gonna happen.
Yeah, I mean,
No,
like I
it
said,
won't.
I'm hoping because honestly, just like I
I
see like, mhm.
I don't see it happening. I'm sorry. I do
And
not agree
that's
with
fine.
that
And
theory.
again, you guys are all entitled to it. It's the, I think like just I see some connections between Yang and like I've always felt like the not Yang the connections between Ruby and Crow I've just always felt were like the strongest. And honestly, they were some of my favorite parts of Ruby. Just seeing the two of them together the way they were, and it always felt like Crow was kind of not so much like more there for Ruby than
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, I
See,
mean, that doesn't have to do with the fact that Crow's Ruby's father, but you know, Ruby really loves Crow as an uncle, so maybe because she was around her a lot, she wanted to emulate a lot of things about him. You know, like his scythe, like the scythe weapon. You know, maybe she thought that was really cool that Crow had one, that she wanted one herself. So maybe by seeing how cool her uncle was, she wanted to emulate him, which is why she has a lot more Crow tendencies than Ty.
yeah, I also do think it's interesting. I like how the whole theme of the show is like, found family and like family's more than blood. So like I'm not holding this against him, but I think it's interesting that Crow isn't actually Ruby's like actual uncle. He's only Yang's uncle, but they still like, she still considers him as an uncle. Which I think
Absolutely.
yeah,
And
which I
you know,
think is
children
really
always
sweet.
emulate
Yeah,
the
no, it
people and
is.
like the adults they think are cool, like you know, TV shows or something like that. So to Ruby, that was Crow. So Ruby went to emulate Crow as much as possible.
Yeah.
Yeah, which I was saying, like, I also see that as like, I'm not saying like every child has to emulate their fathers and that kind of thing or anything like that. Like, they can definitely like choose whatever paths they want to go down
Of
and that kind of
course.
thing. But it's just like it's just like so many different
What?
like I said my mic just unplugged. I was saying there's so many different
Oh,
like
that's what that sound was.
yeah, no, that was the sound of my plug coming up. My bad. But I was saying so there's so many elements of like Ruby and Crow that I thought like worked so well with whenever they were on screen. So many things about their relationship that I saw. And again, like I'm saying, like I'm not saying that Ty like had to have something show in Ruby or like Ruby had to like follow any kind of path that Ty did or anything like that. But it's just like there's little things like that where I think like it fits a little bit more cleanly in my own head canon. Because just like you just it's a head canon, and it's just like I personally think that like more cleanly works out with so many different elements of it. And, like not so much I'm wondering like, oh, why didn't Ty run after Ruby or anything like that? Because I know like he was definitely worried about Ruby, but at the same time, it just like he did seem like a little bit more like chill about it than I thought he'd be. But then again, he also seemed pretty like suggesting the time frame that he fell with Summer. He did seem like he got over that pretty quickly as well. No,
I think that but well
no, no,
maybe
they're
Crow had to
not.
step
But
in. Crow had to step in to be the father figure because of after Summer, you know, dying. Ty was really depressed, which is you know why Yang also said she had to kind of like raise Ruby herself. So it's kind of like Yang and Crow raising Ruby to the best of their ability, which is why Crow came to save them that one time instead of you know
Ty,
Tai Yang. So that might also be
yeah,
why Ruby has more emulation of Crow because she really looks up to Crow for all
Yeah.
that he's done.
I
So
I
will
guess.
also say I can't believe we haven't gotten an official like Team Stark flashback or like a full flashback episode of Team Stark like
Yeah,
at Beacon or like like I said earlier the whole thing of like what actually happened to Summer because
yeah, that we
it's like
still don't know.
everyone's heard about her that it was like Harry's parents and like feels like
Right.
it's like one backstory and like you don't have it and I just it's kind of like the same with Ruby like we all want a Team Stark like something to like sink our teeth into and I just think it's kind of wild that we
oh
haven't gotten it.
man, you
I
know
was like,
what
what?
does have Team
Mhm.
Stark flashbacks?
The fanfics.
Some of the fan
Yeah.
fictions I've read from this author.
That's especially the one I'm reading right now because it like this the fanfic I'm reading now has got me to single-handedly love like Summer and wish we had so much more of Summer in the show. Because just like you can see so much of Ruby in her, but it's like dialed up to 11, and I love it. She's just such a wholesome character, and I love it. She's just like,
It's
oh
really
my
great
God,
the
like
interpretation of Summer. Yeah.
no, because like she's so grateful that she got saved by Jean. She doesn't know that Jean's the one who did because obviously she has no way of knowing who Jean is. But then she's just like so like, oh, I want you to meet my family. I want you to meet everyone and be like, I want you guys to know this is the man who saved me, and I was just so grateful for
That's
that. It is. I love it so much.
I talked about this off screen, Moose, but I personally hope Summer is dead, and I'm really
Yeah.
off
No, but
dead.
it's just like I'm with you on that one though. I am.
What Summer's probably gonna be like in one of the hounds that Salem
That's what,
has.
right. That's what I was going to say. Like I feel like I don't know. It would be too much of like a cheap like. Oh my God! Guess what? She's alive. Like I feel like she's
I mean, I'd
dead.
be happy, but I think I agree with that. I
Mhm.
think it would be probably just kind of like, yeah, no, please
Yeah.
don't bring her back.
Well, I mean, my counter to that is like not so much like, oh, I want to see her alive because I don't think she is alive, but like even if she is in one of the hounds, do you really consider that alive though? I
No.
mean, like, because I mean, like that last silver-eyed guy we saw inside one of the hounds, like, I mean, he didn't seem like he was really like there,
Oh
you
my God!
know?
What if he used to fight her as a hound and kill her mom?
You see, that is what
Yeah,
I'm kind of expecting they're gonna
that's
do,
what
and I
I'm
think that would
expecting
like,
too. Yeah.
Wait, that would be like really good though, because
yeah,
like
that
Yeah.
would be.
she would be able to kill her mom, and so it would be kind of a thing like, what are you gonna choose?
Then again, like I feel like they could have kind of like put that like that's one of those other kind of trials I kind of wish that they did put Ruby through when she was in the Ever After and that kind of thing that was
She needed
challenging of
to.
like
She needed those
yeah.
choices.
But it's just like seeing how much they floundered kind of on the Volume 9 discovery of that, just like you're perfect just the way you are. I do feel like they wouldn't do that like not that they wouldn't do it, just that I don't think they would do it quite the way we're like hoping that they would.
This movie is emotions. Like, I'm
No,
sorry.
absolutely not.
She's a child. And I think like the bigger issue here is that the adults around her really failed her because she shouldn't be the one,
Making all these
making all these
choices.
choices, making all these decisions, but she's been put in a like a rough place that she feels like she has to. So I really don't blame
Yeah.
Ruby that much because she's just trying her best, but I feel like Crow and like Ozpin and like some of the other adults around should have been like, listen,
Hmm.
Ruby, like,
Calm down a
listen.
little.
Decision making in Ironwood, Crow was just standing in the background, like, okay, you make that decision. We'll follow you. It's like, why?
Hmm. If
Because
only
he was just as
Ozpin
upset.
didn't let Ruby 2 years early into Beacon. It's like
Like,
Ozpin was using Ruby for his own gain.
Mm-hmm.
she had the silver eyes too when they had like their first meeting with like the
Yeah,
cookies.
the you have silver
Yeah.
eyes. Yeah.
It's like, how much of it was he actually impressed with Ruby's skills, or did he want to keep a close eye on like a silver-eyed warrior and like
It
turn
could have
her
been
into
both.
something? And we don't know.
Say it could have been both. I mean, like, you could have been equally impressive and be like, oh, she has silver eyes too. Two for one. Yeah, exactly. Like, what? So, like, that invite the idea of like maybe he didn't know about Ruby all this time and that she had silver eyes because because Oz trained both, Raven and Summer. Like, would have known the family at least, like somewhat. Yeah, I think so. Or at least it's implied
Wait,
that she
so
did.
so
Yeah,
Yeah,
she
Summer
did.
had
She
Silver
did.
Eyes.
right. Okay.
So it's like so the Oz had like every reason to know, but like because that's the other thing like they play on very well in like the fanfics with which one was it where like I think it was not this time Fate where like Jean went to a bar, got into a fight. Oz pulls up at the precinct to see Jean. Is like, okay, you have two options. Either you can come with me to Beacon, or you can rot in jail.
Yeah, he
And
got
he's
into a
just like,
fight with Yang because in the fic he obviously knew who Raven was. So when Yang asked John, "Do you know who this is?" and he made a reaction, so that got Yang interested. So they kind of like fought, and Ozpin, they went to jail. So Ozpin's like, "Listen, uh, if you don't come to Beacon, then this young lady's gonna get arrested." Because she got into a fight and she's a student, and that's not good because she destroyed property. It's really bad. But at the same time, Ozpin was doing that because he wanted John into Beacon because he knew he was very powerful for what he's seen, and not only because going back to the Beowulf, he beat that Beowulf barehanded with no aura, which is a very impressive feat to do for a. I think he was 14 at the time when he did that.
Was he even
Uh,
younger than that or something
yeah,
like that?
he maybe I have no idea. Yeah, he was very young, so he really wanted John into Beacon, so he kind of like guilt tripped him into doing it. And obviously, John, even though he was very conceited and different in this fanfic, he is still John at the end of the day. He loves his friends. He cares about them. He doesn't want to see them like suffer or die. So the thought of Yang having to go into jail because of him, he couldn't do that. So he agreed to go to Beacon, because of the guilt trip that Ozpin did.
Right, and I feel like that's the whole point of like I feel like he was just like waiting for something to happen with Ruby where it's like, "Ooh, I can turn this around to get Ruby to come here." Like Ty was like
Yeah,
stopping it or something.
So, can you really blame him for wanting like a silver-eyed warrior, out of school? And you know what? Actually, yeah, I can, because he should have told Ruby what the silver eyes were,
Yeah, I was thinking, that might have been important.
because she's being taken advantage of, and
Hmm.
it's something school a little
it
more.
is technically Ozpin's fault that she's going through all the stuff that she's going through because
There's
of
no
him
technically
inviting
about
her
it.
to
It is his fault.
Beacon.
He offered it to her, so she does have, I mean, of course she's gonna say yes, right?
Yeah,
Of
shit.
course,
That's what you wanted more than anything.
she's just dancing to Ozpin's tune. Maybe Ozpin is the real villain.
Oh my
No,
god.
I
I'm
mean,
kidding. I'm kidding. He's not the
I
real
mean,
villain.
I say at this point
But
though, I mean, like, that
he
is
is
another
definitely
like.
he's very manipulative.
You know what I
100%.
feel like?
Mhm. Oh no, they would. They 100% would.
You gotta look behind the characters' actions, behind their words, and see what they're really saying.
Read between the
That's
lines.
what the fanfic has opened my eyes to.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah, you got to read these fics.
I feel bad for all the characters though.
No, they.
Me
Everyone
too.
has something to them that are just like you do feel like at least a little bit bad for. Even I mean,
Sorry.
well, I mean, again, for us, like we're skewed because of that we saw the fanfics and we've seen like other
Right.
perspectives of her, and like those
I
perspectives of her are great. This version of her, absolutely
I
no
do not feel
sympathy.
bad for Canon Cinder. I do not
Yeah,
like
neither
Canon
do I.
Cinder.
I
But from some fanfics I've read, I do feel bad.
she's one of my favorite characters early on. I really liked her like as a villain, and
Oh, she was the best villain in Volume 3. That plan to overthrow Beacon, that was genius.
it was
Yeah,
That
so
was
genius.
absolutely genius. But then they kind
Yeah,
of just ruined her character.
exactly. Like she was such a genius. She was so smart, and I don't think they needed to try to make us feel bad for her. I don't think they had to give her a sympathetic backstory. I think she should have just been because Salem had that. I think Cinder should have just been a full on evil black and white villain. And because like they just tried, and I'm like I'm sorry, like
nah.
no, don't give us her backstory, or they could
Now,
have done a better job with it
now
because
To
listen.
not
Let
be
me
so
give you a good
blatant.
Cinder backstory. That this isn't one of the fanfics. This is in Service with a Smile, Moose. You've read this one. So
Yeah, I have.
basically, the reason why Cinder ended up working for Salem is because she was basically in this like village, out in like just like in the wilds, and out in the frontier. And I guess these huntsmen were running away from the Grim, because I guess they were outnumbered or something. So the huntsman ran by her village to keep, so basically using the civilians and townsfolk there as a distraction so the huntsman could escape. So the Grim killed like all the villagers there. So Cinder's mom hid her in like a cabinet, like underground, underground shelter, so the Grim wouldn't kill her or anything. Uh, and obviously the Grim killed everyone, her mom, her dad, everyone in that village, and she was all alone. And then Salem ended up finding her, and I guess she took her under her wing, and so she'd get revenge on those huntsmen, which she did. And that is I think that's a more emotional, understanding story than the one that we saw, because it kind of like explains the actions for why Cinder is doing what she's doing, because it's kind of like repaying a debt and also trying to get back at the world for the cruel hand she was dealt. That wasn't really her fault. It was kind of just those huntsmen being like assholes to like run through their village and like kill other people because they couldn't fight the Grim, which is their job. So that's just, I feel like that's a more touching and understanding backstory than the one the canon showed us.
Yeah, which is just basically Cinderella ripoff. Which is
I I don't I like how nuanced they were at first.
yeah.
Fairy tale references, but then with hers, it's literally just like, oh, here's Cinder.
Well, I mean,
Right?
the thing with that though is like if they do continue on that path, I think that confirms what we were just saying before about what happened in the summer. Because if I think about it, Ruby's supposed to be Red Riding Hood, right? What happens to the grandmother? Wolf,
Oh,
Hound. You guys picking up
Uh
what I'm putting down?
oh. Uh oh.
I'm just saying like so it's just like
My
if they
brain is
continue.
expanding. My brain is expanding.
So I'm just saying like if they go on that like literal path, if they want to continue on that, that's what they. But like I don't like that they did that with Cinder. Like just like I mean I think they could have done it
Oh
better,
my
or at least
god.
like showed how that dovetails into Salem. But oh, I gotta
And
read.
they call the guy the huntsman in that fairy tale too, just like the huntsman and huntresses. Oh, it all's coming together.
oh, they're all called Huntsman.
Oh.
Oh my god.
It's also talked about when we talked about Penny. That's why I personally didn't like them making her human because it just felt like to me they're like, oh, Pinocchio becomes a human at the end. Let's make Penny a human. I'd
Yeah,
like the more different
it's
take to it. How
like it's not one for one.
it's not like 100%, and
You're
that's
right.
why
It's not 100% because Pinocchio didn't die.
Well, I mean, in some versions of it, he does like die, but then like gets brought back as a human is kind of what happens. Like, I thought like he drowned. I mean, it's just like, is that what happens in the? I mean, yeah, it's like one in the end, like he drowns and then like he comes back with some magic or something that turns him into. Oh, is it? Is that? I've seen so many different variations of Pinocchio, and sometimes you just get the stories of like what actually happened mixed up. Also, that's just Disney's fault for taking really like popular those stories and kind of like not so much ruining them, but like yeah, just like it's you think Pinocchio, you think Disney for whatever reason.
exactly. I would also say I like the Wizard of Oz references they did with all the headmasters. Like
Hmm.
I think it's really clever how they made Leo be the lion, but instead of gaining courage, he loses it. And Ironwood is the Tin Man. Instead of gaining a heart, he loses his heart. And
Right.
so that means
What's gonna happen to
Theodore.
Theodore? Oh no.
Right, he's Dorothy. So is he gonna lose his home? Like what's gonna happen?
I mean, that would make sense, and also like I could see like he's just like a non-character, like he's not really there, and it just means that he's destined to lose his home no matter what choices he makes.
They, the previous two headmasters, they all lost what they were supposed to gain. And also, Crow is the Scarecrow, so is he going to lose his mind?
Well, the thing is, like, is he supposed to be the headmaster? Is the thing? 'Cause that's the only reason why like that doesn't like
Well,
cleanly fit into that.
Theodore is Dorothy, because like Theodore, Dorothy,
Right? Yeah. No,
Mm-hmm.
I got that connection.
I think is like Crow
Yeah.
Scarecrow.
No, like I can see that. Like that. That's not the part I'm questioning. It's more so just like exactly. So it's like I'm trying to be like, is there like some other headmaster that like more cleanly like fits into that, or that we know
Well,
of?
there's still Glinda, who's technically the headmistress of Vale right now.
Yeah. Who's yeah, technically. Yeah.
Well,
Yeah. She just kind of
isn't she
pulls
like
up
the
and
good
just
witch? She's the good witch.
yeah.
Stuff. She's not really going to lose anything.
Yeah, because in the original Wizard of Oz, like Glinda doesn't really gain or lose anything. She just kind of shows up, casts her spells, and then runs away and then leaves. Because like
Oh,
we're
just
saying
like
that like
Volume
the
One.
I'm saying in the original Wizard of Oz, Glinda, the Good Witch from that story, doesn't really lose or gain anything. Whereas the Glinda here, like if she's supposed to represent that, she's not like fitting as cleanly into that like narrative.
Scarecrow, Tin Man, Lion, they all wanted something. They all got it from the wizard at the end. But in Ruby, the Scarecrow, Lion, Tin Man, they're all losing what they gained in the original story. Is what we're saying.
Yes. Yes, I agree.
Yeah,
You know,
just think it's an interesting pattern, and I
It
wonder
is an
if that.
interesting pattern.
and I
Hopefully
think
things will go well for Theodore and nothing bad will happen.
well, I mean, something bad's gonna happen. I mean, this is Ruby we're talking about. Of course, something bad's gonna happen. But I mean,
If it does follow that pattern, though, that means they are gonna lose Bakuo. Um, so that's gonna be fun.
yeah,
Well, where would
I,
they
I'm
go
not the
next?
most. I mean, the only place
Yeah,
yes, that's the only place they have left to go back to. Because I mean, like we, there's not many areas we've really explored like between the kingdoms. Like, we explored like a little bit of between Haven and Atlas on the way there. Yeah, like little bits of Menage.
there's like the Dragon continent where Salem lives, right?
The
Right, which
Grimlands.
we don't even know like geographically where that is, like in Remnant. Like we know it exists. We know it's like somewhere, but like I always thought of that as like a different like before Salem did attack Atlas, I felt like the whole reason why she wasn't doing anything was because she was like trapped somewhere that only like certain people could pass through. But then because that later inspired like a whole I was saying for my own anime, the anime I'm working on in my own time, that's where my main villain is. Like he's in a dimension he can't leave from, but people with his powers can. Yeah,
I think that's interesting.
That
I was
is
like,
a
it's
really
not,
cool thing,
but
yeah.
it's not what happened with Salem. But like, that's how I always like perceived it when we started getting into Salem.
Salem laid low for hundreds of years and didn't like try to get the relics. Like, why did she wait till now to do it?
It's another one of those like I think like just she was playing the waiting game and kind of playing like they're gonna slip up
It,
eventually, and when they do, I'm
I
gonna capitalize on it.
I think it's been implied that Salem and Ozpin have been at war for many, many years. So maybe just why it took so long now is because Ozpin wasn't prepared and Salem was, waiting for like Cinder to grow up and get more people like Watts, Hazel, Tyrion, and stuff.
Yeah, and I
So
know
maybe
she
it was just
was.
perfect opportunity. I know that's not really a good explanation, but I think it's the best one we
Well,
have.
it makes sense because I
It's an
know
explanation.
she was like come to the flying monkey grave
Yeah,
Yeah,
the end of volume 6.
the Burngle, I think is what they're called.
the
Sure.
the
I
the
finally remember the name of
Burglar,
them for the last
the
episode.
Baragles, I think. Yeah,
Yeah, the Burngle or something. Yeah, I mean,
I
because
want
like
to see another whale.
yeah, no, I was thinking. I mean, like we don't know really like, what Ozpin's really been doing against Salem and all the other lives. Like we don't know like what's been happening with this war behind the scenes and that kind of thing. Like we've only like we know they've been doing something, but it's like Oz could have been like running so many sting operations to take down Salem's forces before they had the chance to grow.
um, Team we got mad at Oz about when they learned like his backstory with the lamp in Volume 6.
Mm-hmm.
Besides him not telling them that Salem's immortal, was that he doesn't have a plan to beat
Mm-hmm.
Salem even after all these years.
Right.
And but then Team Ruby, they don't have a plan either. So nobody right now has a plan how to beat Salem. And
I
They're
mean,
just
I
playing
wonder,
defense at this point.
right? And I wonder theorize this. Like I have no idea how they're actually going to be able to because they can't
Maybe
kill him.
that secret mission that Summer and Raven went on has something to do with it.
yeah, I mean, yeah,
That's what
because
I
we have no
think.
idea what that mission was about. And I mean, like, there's every opportunity that like it did have something to do with like how they're gonna bring it down. But the thing is, not so much. I feel like that'd be like cheating at this point because just like if like we have no idea what they were doing on that. And I feel like at this point they could say it's anything, and we kind of just have to accept that because it's been so long since they've ever mentioned anything for it.
She, that she just went to go face Salem by herself, but I think, like you said, Chris, maybe Summer knew something that like no one else knows how to beat Salem, so she thought she could go do it on her own.
Oh, I mean, she
Because
didn't
in
tell
volume
Ty
six,
about it. Yeah, so she only
right?
trusted Raven with it. So it must be something, and
Well,
that
then Raven
something
would have
must have
said
been what
something.
turned Raven like away from Ozpin or something.
Right.
Or who knows when that took place.
Yeah, I mean,
So much opportunity for that.
'cause I
It's a
felt like
good thing
Raven like
Volume 10 when it happens, Greenlit Volume 10. When it
please.
happens, at the beginning, there's like that. They're gonna. There's we know Raven's gonna be in it, so we're definitely gonna get some context.
Yeah, or just like
I
flesh out some stuff from beforehand and
I
then show that
agree.
scene. But yeah, like it's just like it should have, but it's also like where would they have fit in
So
like
many things
how
should have been in
Raven?
Volume 9.
Yeah, a lot of things also shouldn't have been in Volume 9, to be honest. No, it's
Are
like
you
it's like
saying?
mhm.
Are you saying you didn't like the chess match?
No,
I'm
like
saying I
Oh, that's right.
I
You
was like,
didn't
the
even
chess
watch
match
it.
was beautiful, but I was gonna say like we did not need that scene in there. Like I thought the choreography, like that was just a showing that they can finally do fight choreography well again, which is great. But also like story, please.
see. Was in 7. Like it wasn't like the peak of like volume 3, but then
Right.
after that it was probably the budget cuts. Like volume 8, it just didn't do it for me, and volume 9, from what I saw, it was fine.
Yeah, like
I
they showed like they can do it again, but it's just like it. Volume 9, like again, it had a very strong start for me, but then it was just right after the Tea Party scene that just everything kind of went downhill from there. Because
Exactly.
just like they had a really good story all the way up until that point, and then they just kind of dropped it off there. And again, like yeah, and it's just like,
but Volume 9 is the best because Bumblebee kiss.
and again, and again, like
Mike
not to be
Mike
that
drop.
guy, but what's up?
Mike. No, I just said mic drop.
Oh, I
Okay.
know you're fine. You're fine. I was saying, but just like I, not to be that guy, but it's just like I'm super glad that we got Bumblebee. I've shipped Bumblebee for like the longest time from like way, way, way back then. And I remember like when my friend introduced me to Bumblebee all that time ago. Shout out to Paris/Night. Um, but like it does feel like that maybe like took a little bit too much precedence in this. Like I'm glad it happened. Don't get me wrong, and like I'm super, super glad that it finally got to happen. But it's just like it feels more like they were just doing that to like appease the fans and be like, "Hey, look, we can still do things. Here's the thing you always wanted."
Well,
Adam, I think like
It should have
when
happened.
I watched that scene, I thought they were together. I'm gonna be so honest with you. I told him
now,
so much.
now I'm just imagining as soon as they kill Adam, they just kiss.
I mean,
Just like right after, like right, like below Adam's dead body, they're just kissing over it.
well, I mean,
You're not immediately after that's like
Oh
the end of
my
Bumblebee being like we're together now,
yeah,
and then the rest of the show could just been the same, with them just together.
I was gonna say
I
like I
mean,
could
the
definitely
the
see
fact
that
that we got
happening.
it in volume 9, the next episode gave us one of the worst Ruby memes ever.
Yeah,
Ugh.
of the yeah the make believe
I
friends.
hate homophobic Ruby meme. I
Oh
really
no, I
do.
do too. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. No, the
It's so
memes.
crazy. It's so crazy how like that episode after the Bumblebee kiss got like more views than the Bumblebee kiss itself.
I know
Just
that meme
because
is
it was people hating
everywhere.
on Ruby. I hate it so much. I hate that meme. I'm so happy it's like gone now.
Is it really? Because I've seen it
Uh,
pop up rather a bunch of times on social medias I've been on.
no. It's kind of no, it's not funny.
I mean, it's
Fine.
did you? No, but see,
I
that's
okay.
why.
I will admit the scene where like she's squinting and like the captions. I know what you are. It's just fun. It is funny.
I was
Like
gonna
I
say
know
it's
what you are. God darn it.
it's gonna say, we can laugh at that though because again we know the context behind it. But I think like just like so many people who like take a like it's those jokes where it's just like you take it either way too seriously or you take it out of the context it's meant to be looked in, and then that's what ruins it for it. Is what I think.
Like literally don't know about the
Or
show.
like who haven't really watched it before
Yeah,
that kind of
it's
thing.
like Penguin
Oh,
School.
Moist Critical.
Maybe he's the one who's like, "Woo, baby, that's what I'm talking about." Woo.
Yeah, the woo, yeah, baby, yeah,
Oh, you heard about that controversy with him? I
yeah.
remember
No,
that.
you and I
The
talked
whole
about this
Ruby
before.
community like hate. Oh, we did. That's right. The whole
Yeah,
Ruby community hated on him because he just talked about it without watching the
right.
actual
That's what I'm
volume.
saying is that he watched it and he didn't know the context. Like, the meme was that popular, I guess. You know,
Yeah.
so many people just didn't know. You know, they thought it was real, and it's just a meme.
Which I would say for the first time ever, I kind of like I am not necessarily in support of them like out loud lashing the man for that, but it's like I personally like hate when people like do like talk about something despite never having seen it. People are entitled to their opinions. I'm not here to say that like, oh, like you're wrong for having not seen it or that kind of thing, but it's just like I feel like you have to be very careful when you're talking about something when you don't really know anything about it. Like I understand the arguments of like Rooster saying like they didn't want to talk about racism because they didn't know like how to broach that. And the thing is like I on this channel don't usually like talking about like politics or that kind of stuff because I don't
Yeah,
really know how I want to like go about talking about that. Like it's not a field I'm necessarily comfortable with. But the thing is, by doing that, I avoid the conversation altogether rather than like making an attempt at it, failing, and then backtracking afterward. Yeah, so just like you can't really do that. And it's like I feel like with Moist Critical with that, it's just like with most people or with Joey, the anime man, for anyone who knows him,
yeah,
he like talks about like one of my favorite shows, Data Live, and says how he doesn't like understand what people like about that. And it's like different perspectives. I get it, but at the same time, it's like if you don't have the full perspective of like everything going on with it. It like irks me when I hear that people like say like, oh, it's not that good or that kind of thing. Or it's like, even you, Chris, I can say this about you, buddy. I was saying with the My Hero Academia, you know what I'm talking about, right?
Huh?
Right.
What
I was
about
like,
My Hero
you know
Academia?
what you did. You know what you did, Chris.
What did I do?
It was when I show traded you My Hero Academia, and you were saying that Vigilantes was better, despite the fact you didn't see any of the stuff that happened in the was it the Paranormal
Yeah,
Liberation arc? Is that what it was called?
yeah. I'm not wrong though.
You're not wrong, but it's just the fact that you said that in that moment before having seen it just
But
irked me.
okay, so let me counter that argument by
Okay.
introducing a very known and well loved series, One
Okay.
Piece. Do I
Oh
have to
yeah,
watch
no, totally
all
my
of One
favorite
Piece
too.
to establish if it's good, or am I good after watching 100 episodes? Why not 200? How about 300? Or do I have to watch all 1,000 to realize if One Piece is actually good or not? I
You don't
think
have to watch all
when
of
it
them.
gets
It does
when it
not.
gets to the point where there's a lot of content to like take in, if you take in a good amount, I think then it's good to make a call if it's like good or not. So at
I
that point at that point with My Hero, before I was like the big war thing at the end, I think my take was still accurate, because even then when I read it, I still think Vigilantes is better overall. Just because I didn't read all of it doesn't mean I'm going to change my opinion.
To be fair, like, I'm not saying that like, oh, like, you should have changed your opinion. You should have like held off on that until you read the entire thing or anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
It's just those kind of things that just like irk me though when it comes to like hearing like some things where just like there's a whole aspect of it like you just haven't seen yet or you don't know about. But also,
Yeah, you could literally
yeah,
say the same thing. You could literally say the same thing. It's like, oh yeah, I watched One Piece. I watched up to Skypiea. I didn't really like it. It's like, no, you gotta keep watching. I mean, like the next arc it's a banger. You gotta completely watch. You're gonna fall in love with the show. It's peak. So it's like, but I've already watched like 300 episodes.
I mean, you
So
said
it's
that
just
to me
kind of
about
like,
Dressrosa.
yeah, well, yeah, exactly. I love Dressrosa,
I
but
was gonna,
like Punk
I remember you
Hazard
saying at
was
first like,
was
oh, I don't
not
like.
that interested. Punk Hazard
Mhm.
before Dressrosa was not that interesting, and I can also understand Dressrosa itself was a little too long in the anime. It was very drawn out and poorly done, so I can understand that. But the point I'm trying to make is you don't really need to ingest all of a series to determine if it's good or not, or if it's better than another series.
Was it before this becomes a whole One Piece argument? I'm gonna say just like no, just like, I do see that like you are valid in that, and just more so just like I respect and understand the opinions, and I do respect and understand like you don't need to see like everything to get like the full sense of these characters or the full sense of the story or that kind of thing. But there is always just that part of it that kind of like just irks me, especially when it comes to like, for me, like I love the stuff that happens with the paranormal. I think just it hits so much heavier and so hard for it. At least when I read it in the manga way back when I did. Maybe if I reread it now, like I'm a different person than when I read that originally. I might have a different take on it now, but it's just that mindset to me of like it just irks me when I have that happen.
Yeah, I understand that, but at the end of the day, that's just your opinion and your
Yeah.
bias because you really love My Hero Academia. It's like the
Yeah.
same thing if I were to like show you a fanfic and you said you didn't like it that much. I'd be like, oh, I feel a little down, but I respect your opinion at the end of the day.
Yeah, kind of the same thing. I wouldn't say also I'd love My Hero Academia. I want to clarify that, but that's a video for another day talking about my favorite animes. Would you really? Okay. I mean, yeah, no, just what is this podcast about again? Just
Huh? Oh, hey, is it? Hey, does that mean it's Ruby fanfic time? Let me tell you about another fun one, guys. This is a good one. Here we go.
I'll
All
say,
right. So,
just a quick time check. So we'll probably go for like 20 more minutes. If that's good
okay.
with everyone.
I'm
good.
down to do whatever.
Oh my goodness, we've been recording for 2.5 hours. What the
I
heck?
It's
Where did the
fun, man.
time
It's fun.
go? All right, listen. So this one I've told Moose about many times. This is actually
Yes,
one
you
I'm
have.
currently reading. It's ongoing right now. It's updated every Thursday.
Oh, this
This
is the dream
one,
one, right? Yeah.
yes, this is the dream one. This one's so good. So basically, it basically happens in like Beacon. But
It's
the
that
difference
SpongeBob
is
episode where Jean jumps into dreams.
John John's
Yeah.
semblance allows him to enter into people's dreams, and he could like manipulate them and change and like try to like change it as
Like
best as he
SpongeBob.
can. But it obviously uses his like aura and stuff because it's his
Right.
semblance. So it's actually really good because it's very like it really shows more. I know I keep saying like it shows more of like, the characters, but this one it like really goes more in depth. So like let me use Yang's for example. So basically, one time John goes into Yang's dream, and it's like she's there waiting all by herself, and John's over there. It's like, hey, and she's like a kid. She's like probably how she was with the two the twin the
The
twin
pigtails.
tails, the pigtails. Thank you, the pigtails. And she's like that age, and that's what she looks like. And John's like, "Hey, what are you doing?" And she's like, "Oh, Vomit Boy, I'm waiting for Ruby,
Oh,
Weiss, and Blake. They said they'd be here any second. And I was just waiting here at her spot." Um, so John's like, "I'll just wait with you." So they wait. A lot of time passes, and
He
Yang's
never
getting
comes.
upset. But Yang's getting upset because they haven't come, and that goes into her abandonment issues that she has
Hmm.
with like Raven, because Raven like abandoned her. So then the dream changes to another time when Yang's even younger, and now she's waiting for Crow, and she's like, oh, my uncle's usually always late, but he'll definitely come and stuff. He never
Yeah.
comes. And then John's like, you know what, I'm gonna take you to the park. So they go to the park, and they're there, and like John's like pushing Yang on a swing, and suddenly this wagon rolls up out of nowhere. And Yang's like, "Oh, what's that? That looks like our wagon." And John's like, "This is very suspicious. I'm gonna go check it out." So he goes to open it, and it's like Ruby's dead body inside. Obviously, because it's like a dream, and so it's kind of like
Well,
turning into a
yeah, but still,
nightmare. So it's like, so John quickly puts the blanket back over, and she's like, "Nope, that's not your wagon. Trust me. Must be someone
there's no
else's."
way.
So they like, "Don't look in there." So they continue to just play on the swing, and the dream ends, and Yang says thank you to John for just being there for her in the dream, when the dream could have obviously gone a lot worse. Uh, but one of my personal favorite ones, and the fic, it's actually one about Velvet, and basically in this one, John is like watching like a child Velvet, and like I guess she just watched like a scary movie with her team, so there's like all these like horror monsters trying to like try to like scare her or attack her. So there's like this one scene where like the phone rings, and it's like and like John picks up and is like, "Are you alone, little girl?" And John's like, "Nope, I'm a man and I'm a huntsman." He's like, "Oh crap, wrong number," and he like hangs up. There's like
Oh,
zombies
Velvet,
outside or
sweetie.
like ghosts flying around, and John's like doing his best to like protect Velvet from like being afraid of like all these things. Uh, it's really cute. No, but it gets better. It gets better. So John wakes up. He's like, "That was one of the easiest streams I've ever been in. I love that." So he goes to have breakfast with his team in the cafeteria, and you guess what? Guess what's happening? A very familiar scene where Cardin is pulling on Velvet's ears. So the scene
Yeah,
basically starts the same way as it did in the show.
Carter being a dick.
Yeah, and but John, he obviously, after caring for Velvet many times, he sees that, and in his mind he's like thinking about how Velvet is like a girl, and like how she was like scared and innocent and young and stuff, and she saw Velvet cry, from obviously being pulled, and like literally in the next second, John's like, it says John's hand's like really hurting, so he's like, "Huh, why does my hand hurt?" And he looks on it, and he sees like blood on his hand, and he looks forward, he sees like Cardin like 4 feet on the ground. He punched Cardin out of like anger, out of like how he was treating Velvet. And I'm like, "Let's go! That's so awesome!" I'm like, "Oh, that's like
Oh,
the most hype
jeez.
scene of that I've ever seen." Because he's done like a few interpretations of that scene, but that was the most hype one I've ever seen.
Hmm.
It was just really well written and really good. This one is looking to be probably one of my more favorite fics with the route it's going. It does a lot of things with Amber as well, where
Ooh,
because technically Amber is still like
alive, quote
alive
unquote.
at the point. So John like goes into like her dreams sometimes, and they like interact and stuff, and it's kind of like he's like living the last moments of her life with her. He like inserts himself
So,
in there. So he's like a traveling buddy to her. Like they travel around the world, and I guess they kind of like fall in love, or at least Amber thinks so in like the dreams. Obviously John doesn't know that, because he only
right.
visits sometimes in the dreams, but like I guess it's a continuous
Also, because he's
dream that
dense,
Amber
but
has. Yeah, it gets really like sad and dramatic, and near the end of it, Amber does pass away. Right
mm,
before, well, because I guess Ozpin found out. So John's like, you got to go in. If you look inside her dream, you can find out who it was that like like killed her. So or not kill her, put her in the state that she was in. So he does
right.
that, and it was getting to the moment like in the forest, and Amber was like freaking out and going crazy, and John, he couldn't let her go through that. So instead of seeing the scene, he brought her to like a nice beautiful flower field, and they like she told him like that she loved him, and thank you for so much for being with me throughout like all these moments of my life ever since you freed me from being contained in Ozpin's cell. It was all really nice, and thank you so much. And she passes away, and she actually does die. It was really sad and upset, and it's such a really good fic. Honestly, I wish I could go into more details about it, but it's really a fic that you people have to read like
Also, I'll read it
all
when it
your time.
finishes.
Yeah, it's still ongoing. It's really sweet. It does a lot of weird things, but it also does a lot of good things right.
Well, I mean, to be fair, like it's a dream thing, so it's like usually with dreams, like you could afford to be like a little bit more hokey with it, and like that. That's usually why like I don't typically like dream stories, but I definitely want to give this one a shot. This one does sound like it's very, very, very good.
It's really really well done, amazingly well done. There's even this one dream where I guess it's Ruby's dream, and this one's actually, oh my god, this one's so cool. So basically, I guess it was the anniversary of Summer's death, so and Ruby
Oh,
feels bad that she can't go to like visit her grave because she's at Beacon. So John's there, and John gets this idea where he actually turns himself into Summer. He basically saying, and he's like saying, oh, you don't have to worry about it. I know you're working really hard and you're doing well. You don't have to worry about visiting me. I know you still love me and care about me. And that comforts Ruby to like a really good point. And then I guess John looks up at the grave and he sees like the spirit of Summer by it, and she like smiles at John and like goes up, and then Ruby wakes up from the dream. So it's kind of like the I guess like a mysterious feature of was Summer, like the actual ghost of Summer in that dream of Ruby's, to see her, because that was really sweet and wholesome, and I guess Summer was really appreciative of John doing that for her.
it's really sweet. I like that.
It's very layered. It's very layered. I'll tell you that. It's a good fic. It's a really good fic.
As I
I
said,
could
I'm
definitely see
definitely
it
gonna
being
check
really
it out.
great.
So I'll check it out when it does finish up eventually. I mean, like I have a lot of stuff I gotta get to, man. I got like a 2,955 list of shows I want to watch eventually, but yeah, but
That's okay. We'll just do another trade.
yeah, don't worry. I mean, I definitely have plenty of shows to trade with you, and I got some bad
Yeah,
ones on there too.
I got some stuff to trade you as well.
Alrighty.
Oh yeah, you should read it too.
You know what? I don't read Ruby fan fiction, which is interesting. I've read one a while ago, but I would be down to giving it a shot.
I highly recommend the ones that I've read so far, like the Service with a Smile, Not This Time Fate, Relic of the Future is looking to be great so far. Professor Arc looks
Professor
amazing.
Arc. If I were to recommend one fic that you should read from this author, it's definitely Professor Arc, because I'll tell you
Okay.
the journey in Professor Arc is really good. That when it gets to like the final point, I remember like, every time I read it, I always tear up because it's like I really remember like the journey that John got through to get to the point where he was, and it makes me just feel really emotional, and I really love it.
No, I love that. I'll definitely have to look into them for sure.
I mean, I'll also say like that's a good like not so much like oh it's a good like beginner thing or that kind of thing. No, it's just like it for me like when Chris first told me about the fanfics, he actually started me on Service with a Smile, and Service with a Smile is great. I love it. But when you're not used to this guy's like style, because the big issue I have with this particular writer is like he does really amazing like action scenes, but they tend to like kind of go all over the place when he writes them. So it's like sometimes I lose track of like where I am in the scene. That happened a lot with Service with a Smile. Professor Arky does a little bit better with it, and I think like if you're just trying to get into like his style of writing, that's a very good fic to start off with, and I think
Well,
like he does
Servers
very
with a
well.
Smile doesn't really have that much fighting in it because it's more slice of life.
It doesn't, but like it has so much more action going on somehow. Like so many more scenes
It
of like
does have a lot
scenes
more
with
moving pieces.
yeah.
Yes,
Well, then that's just like
just like
moving
Relic
pieces.
does, because Relic is like more ambitious. It has like a lot more characters than like one scene you'll have like like Adam and Blake's perspective, another scene you'll have like John's perspective, then you have like Ironwood's perspective. Here's little Emerald with her perspective. Oh, but here's Winter over here with her perspective. So it's like it's definitely more ambitious.
I mean, it's that, but then it's also like just his general descriptions of dialogue, and like this is something that even I struggle with when it comes to script writing nowadays. It's just like sometimes like, I'll read through what he's saying, like where these characters are in the scene, but then they'll jump to a different area from where I was imagining they were in my head, and that to me just kind of takes me out of the experience of reading it. Yeah. Like it confuses me a lot of the time. That might just have to do with just how I am with reading and how I am with just doing stuff like that. Like I admit I'm a slow reader and that kind of thing, but you know.
Well, sometimes when there's like a fight happening, either the author will have it be from the perspective of one of the fighters, or be it from a perspective of one of the spectators.
Right,
So
even then
I
like
can
he
understand
switches
that it
and
can get a little it can just switch a lot. So I guess I can understand that. But I
yeah.
would definitely say Professor Arc is the best beginner friendly fic out of this author personally to read, to like get into his works, because there's a lot
Right.
of different fics. Like I've mentioned a lot of good ones, but there's also a few bad ones, and there's also uh a lot of AU ones, which is like another universe. Like there's this one where it's like it's basically like the Ruby characters, but they're like in this like system where it's like kind of like a video game, and like John's a blacksmith and he wants to be like a hero, but he can't be, and he finds like this relic that like breaks his like class or something, so he can be like hide his class and be like a fighting class or something, so he can go to like the school and stuff. It's a really long read, but it was, I remember when I read it, it was really enjoyable. So
Mhm.
there's like a lot of different like lot of different flavors to have. He has like
Yeah.
38 written stories. He is a professional writer too. So he like writes for like a news article in England, because
Yeah,
he's
that's what
like
I got.
he's British. So you'll see a
Oh,
lot of
And
like
it's a lot of
You'll see a lot of
Britishisms.
like Britishisms. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's cool. That's cool.
Yeah.
Check it
it's
out.
great. I
Yeah, no,
honestly, I don't know what I'd be doing with my life if I hadn't found this author, because like I read his works like almost all the time, and I always think
I'm,
about them, and it's just really inspirational and stuff, and it really gets my creative juices flowing as well. Whenever I like read it, it makes me think and get a lot of fun ideas.
Have you ever written fan fiction, Chris?
I have not written one of my own Ruby fan fiction because I'm afraid if I do, I wouldn't be able to capture the characters right.
objection. I was gonna say because of the fact that you actually do write a fanfic, it's just in the form of a role play that he and I do every now and then together, just like a D&D style thing. We're just playing with our favorite characters.
Jules Close.
No, it's not. No, but just like it is like just there's a role play that he and I do every now and then of just like we're playing with these different characters. We're like these heroes going through the worlds and that kind of thing. It's super fun. Yeah,
It is
yeah.
like D&D, yeah.
I mean,
It's
essentially,
very
yeah.
fun.
It's just like yeah. No, we
I'd like to. I definitely like to write my own fanfic. I think
I
I'd
can
be interesting.
guarantee you, whatever you write, it's going to be better than the canon. So I think you should give it a shot. So
I mean, yeah. I would say if anything we've
That's
said
a
is
very
confirmed.
bold. That's a very bold claim. What if I read a fanfic about John turning into a can of soup? You would eat that up? Oh goodness! Don't eat John's soup, please. No.
Oh no.
Well, I guess since we're getting closer to the end, and is there any questions that either of you have that you'd like me to answer about anything?
I don't know.
We just introduced you to the entire world of fanfic in 2 hours. So
Should call this video because I feel like it's very fan fiction centric.
I,
So
I I remember when Moose told me that we would all get the opportunity to talk like this. I suggested fan versus critic versus fanfic.
I think that's a really good title because it can be like part two of this.
yeah,
Yeah.
Thumbnail can be like some sort of fanfic thing to show that it's very like fanfic.
really just the other like side of the Ruby fandom like focus.
Fanfiction.
Listen, I've only scratched the surface. I got a lot more I could share.
Oh
I
no,
got a
I
lot
believe
more.
you, man. I believe three. Very interestingly, more
I
episodes
will
of these
tell
are
you though. I
fun.
will tell you this though. I don't think I could ever read fanfic from another series, because I feel like
Okay.
Ruby really does a good job because the world is really good and vast. Uh, because they have like the concept of semblances, the concept of like mecha shift weapons and dust and like the
It's a great
grim.
like springboard for like endless
Yes,
possibility.
I mean,
exactly. And I feel like not a lot of like series do that. Another series we mentioned it earlier, My Hero Academia, kind of the same way because of the quirks and
yeah,
stuff. So I think that's also a good one. Another good one. I was telling Moose about this. I recently played through the newest Naruto Storm game,
right.
and
You're telling me about.
I really loved that. And it got me thinking about like making my own like Naruto character or something like that, and how like a good story would be in the Naruto verse. So it made me think that maybe a Naruto fanfic would be good. And actually, funny enough, Naruto is the number one anime fanfic written on fanfiction.net. Like it's the top
Is it
result, has the
really?
most fanfics. So apparently it must be good. So I was honestly thinking of trying to give Naruto fanfics a try, but again, personally, I think Ruby fanfic is probably some of the best fanfics I'll ever read. Of course, my opinion could be wrong if I ever decide to branch out and try other things, but I'm very content with just Ruby fanfics for now. I think
I
I've been
mean,
reading them for like 2 3 years.
there is also the aspect of like we've only really scratched the surface of even those fanfics. We've only really read fanfics from this one author. Like I have a couple fanfics I've found that I kind of want to go into eventually with like other people who've written it, and it's just like this guy does amazing work with it. Like I'm not gonna say otherwise. Like there are some things I don't like necessarily about what he's done with the stories and that kind of thing, but I can't deny the amazing work he's done with it. But also like we haven't really explored that much into like the other works of it. I think that there definitely are some fanfics out there for Ruby that I have read that I don't like all that much.
Well, I've go ahead.
You
Mm.
go.
Oh,
You
thank you.
go.
So that first one I mentioned, Letters of Winter, that is not from Core. That is from a different author. His name is Mallowblade.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
And then there was this other one I read. I actually wanted to mention. It's named Tournament Arc. I don't know if I've told you about this one, Moose. I might have in the past, but basically it's kind of like it's kind of like Ruby, but like with some like hints of like My Hero Academia in it, where basically there's like this big tournament that's kind of like the school festival, the sports festival from season 2 of My Hero, and I guess Velvet trains John to like use his aura more like like a weapon or something. I guess like channeling your aura to your fist to like do like an aura infused punch and stuff. So there's like these really cool fights. The fights in those are really great. Like there's like a fight between like John and John and Yang and like John and Weiss, and then the finale which is like John versus Pyrrha, and it's like they give them like
And he
these
actually
like
wins
different like
those.
weapons and stuff. What's up?
So like, he actually wins those against Weiss and Yang. Jeez, okay.
He does win them, and they're very close ones, and it's really like it's really good, and it's kind of like a little different than canon because like Roman makes an appearance, but he's not like a villain. He's kind of just like a normal guy or something. It's really weird, but the story itself was really good for that
Yeah.
one. I really like that one. And that one's not written by Core. It's written from a different author as well. And I've read like different ones. Like I read this one where it was like a normal AU, and it was like a Ruby and Weiss fanfic. Where, like they got together or something. And I guess Weiss is from a normal like a rich family, and Ruby's just normal girl. And I guess Weiss falls in love with Ruby. Blah blah blah. I've read some other weird ones as well. Some really bad ones. Like I remember I read
I
this
just
one.
want to say that there is definitely a toxic side of the Ruby fan fiction community,
Oh
with
yeah,
all the
definitely.
shipping wars and
Oh,
just all the weird
Oh,
you know
I am surprised we have not mentioned shipping that much in this whole conversation because you want to know my opinion of shipping.
okay.
I feel like any pair can work so long as you give really good context and like build up to make it that way.
Thank you. I was gonna say like just like I was the same way where just like I thought like it didn't matter who Blake ended up with as long as they made it make sense and as long as she was happy with it and we saw that she was happy with it was all I cared about. What did I want it to be Blake and Yang? Yes. But if it ended up being anyone else, I was gonna be like, you know what? I don't care. I'm happy with this.
Shipping is really fun. I feel like it can obviously get really toxic when people
Get like
if it,
possessive of it.
right,
Absolutely.
you can't ship that pair. Like this person has to be with this person, or when
Yeah.
they threaten the writers, like you got to make this pair canon. Like there's always gonna be those main. Like Bumblebee is a very main ship, and I am glad that they ended up together. But it just like people can ship who they want as long as it's healthy.
I was saying Gotobun no Hayome fans, anyone?
I don't know what you just said.
He,
Gotobun no Hayome is
he said the quintessential quintuplets.
yes, yes, it is. There are very, very, very mixed opinions on how that ended, and I think that there were even like some threats sent to the author from what I've heard. So yeah, no, that's another very, very good watch, which I'd highly recommend to A, anyone at home, and B, also to you.
I
So
wish a lot of some. So there's this one manga called We Never Learn,
yeah,
and
I know that
it's
one.
basically it's this guy and he's like helping these girls study, kind of like this
Yeah,
almost the same premise as
quintessential
quintessential
quintuplets.
quintuplets, but so obviously at the end of the manga, the author has to make a choice for which girl he ends up with, right? So he
I mean, you
chooses the
could choose
childhood
none of them.
friend, but
Mhm.
then what the author did after that is that he then made like scenarios where he ended up with each individual girl, and he like made them like a few chapters long, so it like gave build up to like get to that point for understanding like how they got together. It'd be
Like to
really cool
appease
if
all
authors did that more, but I don't. I guess probably a lot more work and time, so you really can't. So
budget.
it'd be really cool if they could do something like that more often. But I guess I'm fine with the way the things are usually, all the time
Yeah,
though. But shipping is fun, and people should not make fun of people for shipping what they want to ship because everyone has their own headcanon at the end of the day, and people are just mean.
Exactly. So don't be mean.
Don't be mean.
That's the takeaway from this video. It's just
if anything else, yeah.
If someone comes up to you and says, I really love Neo and Ruby, just be like, okay, I
as
understand.
long as there's
Mhm.
not like there's not like consensual. They're all of age. They're all
Please stop shipping
Right.
Oscar with people.
Please. I was saying,
Please stop shipping
I was
Oscar.
saying like,
Please.
I'd say even then, it's just like, you do you, my man. It's just like, I will express that I don't necessarily agree with any ship if I don't agree with any ship, but it's just like, there are things I'm just like, it's fine. It's all good. It's all
I
good.
agree. It
Um,
is all
as
good.
I
Well,
was thinking, with that being, mhm.
hopefully both of you have taken away some good takes and maybe some interest in fanfics I've spoken of, and maybe you, the viewers, as well, may start your journey in RWBY fanfiction due to my talking of it. I do hope so, and it would make me happy if I could turn at least one more person into reading these awesome works, because the author is really something that needs to be more spread out and known about, because he's just really good.
We'll put the link in the well, or Moose, you can put the link
Yeah,
in your YouTube description of like the links to all these fanfics you recommended, Chris, and the author we talk so highly of. And
yeah,
And
like
your
we'll
fanfic,
maybe like,
please. I want to read your fanfic, please.
oh, thank you. Yeah, I can.
yeah.
Well, I mean, you can, either give me your contact or Moose can send it to you. But
I
that
think
that would be very.
with permission, I shall. I was gonna say, no, but
Okay.
I was gonna say, you got it. We have it on camera. I was gonna say, but no, but just no, but I was
Where's the
saying,
hidden camera?
what do you mean hidden camera? We're recording.
Oh
Yeah,
goodness, is
but
this where they tear my house down?
the no, but I was gonna say though, I mean, like we hope that you guys did enjoy like a lot of the discussions we had here. I enjoyed having this discussion with these guys a lot. Getting these two on this channel here to talk to each other for a lot of this has just been a dream come true, and I'm so glad that I get the chance to be able to just talk to awesome people like them and just be able to have these chances with all these people.
So this has been a
Yes.
great conversation. So thank you for your amazing channel and bringing us back. And it was so nice to meet you, Chris, and hear your opinions. And I can tell how passionate you are about, the fanfic and the show. So it's really always lovely to see. So thank you.
Thank you, Alia. It was a pleasure to meet you as well. But most importantly, give it up for Moose, who is here to have us together to all talk. Round of applause for him. Everybody clap right
Thank
now. I'm
you.
sure everyone watching is clapping.
Absolutely.
Amazing. Thank you for having this amazing channel, bringing us all together to talk about what we love and the things we agree on. And it's just so lovely to be here.
Uh,
Absolutely. And please, let us know if we ever can come back. I'd love a part three.
Also, you should totally subscribe to the channel.
uh,
Smash the like button, ring the bell so you can get notified every week of new uploads.
yeah, exactly. So you know my schedule better than I do. Yeah, no, but like, it's my dream always to like give people a platform to be able to share the things they're passionate about. I love being able to talk about the things I'm passionate about, and that I get to do so with people who share that passion with me is just great. And any chance I get to, if there's anything you guys are passionate about that we are as well that we want to discuss, I'm more than happy to bring them back on to do just that. So
Leave everything your recommendations and hot takes in the comments below. Make sure to be kind,
Yes.
everybody.
If you
respectful,
have any
100%.
awesome RWBY fanfics to recommend, please recommend them. I will read them.
If you wrote your own fanfic,
And you're
let
willing
us
to share it. Yep.
check it out. Check.
Yeah, no, I also like I was thinking for this video particularly, I wanted to be able to like talk about some of the comments that we had on our first video, but like I think we've responded I think to most of them like as best we could to them, and like we've talked a lot about like kind of our thoughts on a lot of the different things that were said in those comments. But if there's any takes you guys have that we didn't talk about here, or if there's anything like as long as it's respectful, if you don't agree with some of the things that we say here, I'm more than happy to do like personal like talkbacks to like a few of those different things. Again, as long as it's respectful and as long as it's done with the mindset that like we don't all have the same idea or mindset with things, but we just want to contribute our mindsets to to the community and to inform of other perspectives that maybe we didn't consider before. I'm more than happy to look into them.
Discussion, and then we find out that we're all really cool people and we actually got a lot of comments. So that's why I love doing these videos, to show all the overlap between different sides of like fandoms. I think it's a really beneficial thing to do, and I wish more people would be willing to do it.
I wish people would understand fanfic is better than canon.
Or just give it a try. Just
Just putting the hottest take out right at the end.
no, well, that's what's gonna blow this video up.
I'm sorry, I ruined
Yeah.
the video.
It's all fine. It's all good, my man. You made this video just as everyone here
Hey,
watching at
well,
home did too.
at least we'll know who the real ones are when they comment.
Yeah, that they were
Who
here
stuck
for
through the
this all
whole
the way. Yeah,
video.
Yeah, comment if you made it all the way here to the end. Like, just give us a sign that you've made it all the way to this point or
Comment
something.
I love RWBY if you have watched all the way to the end of the video. No cheating, we'll know if you did.
100% we will. It's a hashtag all I love Ruby all over these comments. With that being said, like any final closing thoughts you guys want to give, or
Yes, it was a lot of fun, and I look forward to the next time.
Well, I could give more fanfic recommendations, but I don't want to be here for another hour, so I'm all good. Thank you very much
or
for having me.
I said it's been a pleasure, and as always, it has been a pleasure to bring this content to you guys. I can't wait to do a whole lot more of this. This is, I think, my last video for the year because of that I have this video is going to go up, and then I have two Christmas videos coming up for you guys after that. And then after that, it's just going to be like some of the normal content going into the next year, and then eventually we'll be back here and we'll see where content goes after that. But for now, this is the last video of the year, and it's probably one of my favorite videos to end the year on. So thank you guys so much for being a part of it. Thank you everyone at home who stuck with us and watched everything from home. I hope that you guys really enjoyed it. If you did, please share this with your friends. If there's any takes you guys want us to talk about, again, please let us know in the comments below. As long as it's respectful, we'll always be willing to consider them. So thank you guys so much for watching. And as always, I will catch you guys in the next one. Peace.